Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today I have Eddie with me. We are talking to the open source master, and I am looking for some guidance here. So this is much needed help for me. He's a GitHub representative, and I'll just call him that. I don't know if that's official, but yeah, we're going to be talking about open source, getting started, and contributing to the community. And I have a lot of questions myself because of an open source project that I started. So I've wanted to do this for a while, ever since I've got on YouTube and started pushing projects and tutorials out. I have had people ask me to do something live. 1 second. My YouTube channel just turned on, so I had that 5-second lag. Got into my headset. So yeah, ever since I started, I've had people wanting me to do something that's open source, and I just kind of went through it, or went for it with Eddie's recommendation. But now I'm stuck with a bunch of questions because I don't know GitHub that well. I don't know how to run a Discord server, which a bunch of people have stepped up and started helping me with. So yeah, this is what we're going to be talking about. And just to give people some context, the project that I started was, it's like a Stack Overflow / Twitter clone, maybe like a Medium platform. So you can write articles, you can ask questions and so on. So Eddie, I've had so many people step forward as moderators, people contributing to code, which I'm like overwhelmed with now, because I'm like, wow, like I don't know how to clean all this up or make sure that I'm pushing the right code. So yeah, it's been a little bit crazy. So if you can just to give your background with open source and what you do on YouTube with your job. And by the way, Eddie is linked up with his Twitter account and YouTube account down below. So check him out there. Yeah, if you can just give a quick intro.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on your channel, Dennis. I'm super excited. It's great to geek out with you and your community about open source, my one true love. So a bit of background on me. I've been a full stack developer and DevOps for over 15 years. Before full stack was a word, before DevOps was a word, I got into open source over 10 years ago. Before there was GitHub, like it was a very different landscape back then. And things are just so much more exciting now, so much more collaborative. And I've been a freelancer or a contractor, however you want to call it, for over 10 years. And I love doing that. And I share my journey, my adventures on my YouTube channel as well, as you mentioned. So open source. So I've just been doing open source for ages. And my first, like over 10 years ago, my first contribution, I won't say pull request because there was no pull request back then. So my first contribution,
Old school,
super old school, was fixing a typo. So if anyone says, you know, I fixed a typo, I didn't really contribute, well, that adds value. And open source is about adding value. It could be raising an issue, fixing a typo. And I'll be honest, you know, between you, me, and the few people that are watching in your community, my 10th contribution was fixing a typo still. But then I started to understand how the flow worked, and I started doing bigger and, you know, better contributions. Last year I became a GitHub star. So there's about 30 of us selected to be a GitHub star. And I actually won GitHub Star of the Year. So that's actually 1 out of 55 million people on GitHub that I'm super proud of. So that's really good. But this is all kind of community based. So I'm not, GitHub don't pay me to say this. This is, I just love open source and I love collaborating with everybody. But I'm completely an open book. So anyone can ask any questions and I'm more than happy to share.
So you're the perfect person to ask these questions to then. That's amazing. That's why I'm excited. So the one thing I want to get started with, because I have a bunch of my own questions and I want to get through those. But the first thing is the first thing that I experienced in that Discord server was people wanting to know how to contribute. So there's people that are just getting started with what I'm teaching. In my case, I'm using Django and React for the project, and they're just kind of getting familiar with that, but they're not familiar with GitHub in itself. Or they don't even, some of them don't even know what GitHub is. They don't know how to send a pull request, how to actually contribute. So that's what I want to start with is, what are the minimal requirements? Like, I know GitHub isn't the only platform where you can do something like this, but it is probably the, you know, by far the number one. I don't know what the percentage is. What's that minimal requirement that people learn? Like, they should probably learn GitHub, learn all the local and live commands. Like, what do you recommend to get started with there?
The minimum requirements is just the passion to learn. That sounds really cheesy, but literally, if you can use a web browser, if you can like register on a platform, you know, be it Facebook or Instagram, GitHub, if you've got an email address, you can register, then you can use GitHub, because you actually don't even need Git. The GitHub platform will allow you to create a repo, which is like a project. And it will also allow you to upload files, create files on the platform, make contributions to other people's projects, all via the UI. Yes, you'll eventually get to a limit of what you can do, and you'd want to then clone the project locally to be able to do a lot more with Git. But it is a lot to take in. I remember when I first got on GitHub, it is a lot to take in. I first got started with Git. There is loads. They're both platforms, or both tools are really feature rich, and you don't have to learn everything. You can just learn a little bit as you need. So my biggest advice to everybody is just to register and get started and just click around. Like, the beauty of GitHub and being underpinned by Git, you can't do anything wrong. Like, if we went to Dennis's repo now, we want to make a contribution and accidentally delete all the files, Dennis has to accept that. So if he doesn't accept it, then nothing's gone. Only in your, what we call a fork, which is a copy of Dennis's project under our account, would it get deleted. And it's still not deleted forever, because you could either undo that, you could either delete your fork, so your copy, and then refork it again. So there's nothing you can do wrong. And one thing I do on my live streams, if I want to really encourage people to get started, is I say, right, everyone go create a terrible issue, one that doesn't make any sense. And I'll just go through and close them. And I guarantee you that tomorrow will still turn up, as in, like, it's not going to ruin like tomorrow's events. And it's just breaking the ice for people. They're worried if they raise a bad issue. And an issue is like a ticket or a task, so people watching don't know what an issue is. It's just like a discussion point. And you've got to think about open source as collaboration first and code second, because if you want to make a contribution to your project or someone else's, we always recommend raise an issue. That's starting the conversation. So that's the collaboration. And once you've kind of agreed roughly what's going to happen, then you make your changes, you raise a pull request. And a pull request is just like an issue, but it has some code. Oh, that's my mic. Has some code attached to it. And then you're just having the conversation again about the changes. So it's collaboration, changes, and collaboration again. And that's just the thing that people should look at. You can't do anything wrong. Just try.
So GitHub, for sure, then you said at different levels, is definitely one of the minimal requirements then as far as contributing. That's the one area where my insecurity kicks in right now, because we were talking before, it was on a different stream and just personally, or on a Twitter Spaces, and I don't know GitHub that well. I have very bad practices. And this is where, when I was starting it, that was my biggest concern. I'm like, there's people that are like, oh, I just forked your project. And I was like, what the hell is a fork? I've built out applications. This is where insecurity kicks in, because I worked on a project for 2 years. I've sold a product, I've built real things, but I was the one contributor, and the people that helped me, the people that I hired, just kind of worked within my ecosystem. I just never did that. That's a huge flaw. But in theory, like what you said, I worked with what I was able to do, but it wasn't the best. But you can start at some point. So getting those basics, learning what a clone is, like you mentioned, that's just to fork a project, which is to make a local copy of yours on your GitHub account, clone it, make a change, push a commit or a pull request. Things like that are definitely necessary.
And we can do that if you want. If you're happy to share your screen, I'm happy to fork your project and make a contribution to you. I'm more than happy to do that right now live if you wish.
Sure, we can actually do that. Yeah. Let's do that in a couple of minutes here. I want to set that aside. That'd actually be cool. And if I look up open source, you're the first person that comes up. You're on Traversy Media. You're on your channel. I see you on Free Code Camp. So anybody looking to get started, you can't miss Eddie when it comes to open source. So go check out those entry level projects and what they need to, or what you need to learn, I guess, to get started. I mean, there's a lot of content out on YouTube on that, but yeah, definitely need to get started. Then you'll see Eddie. Yeah.
And if I can add one more thing to that, I just want to say the benefits of open source. So I think you were talking about, people contributing to your projects, and it's great as a maintainer, and you'll get to learn. I find that as a maintainer, I learn different skills when I'm reviewing stuff. It helps me when I submit issues or pull requests to other people's projects. I feel I do them better because I see the ones that come in, oh, that's really great how they mentioned that or described that or laid that out, and vice versa. I think, oh, that's really bad, I would have done that differently. And it just helps reinforce it in my mind. But for everyone watching, the number one thing that has helped me to get where I am is get clients that I don't chase after. They chase after me. They don't negotiate me down and negotiate me up, is from open source. They literally find me on GitHub, be it, I've had Facebook contact me, I've had Google, I've had GitHub, and I've had smaller startups, and they all contact me via GitHub. They can get to see not just only my work, but also my communication and collaboration. And that's really important. A lot of companies nowadays, they do want to see how you collaborate. Will you be a fit for their team? And the only way to get better at raising an issue or raising a report and collaborating with people who have different languages, or just explaining things in text asynchronously is to do it. And I can really see when I interview someone from my clients if they've contributed to open source, because they will explain themselves very differently. They'll always give context. There's sorry, go on, Dennis.
Oh no, I was just kind of nodding along to what you're saying.
Oh, okay. But I just want to recommend to people that it's so beneficial. You're going to learn tech, you're going to learn communication, and you're going to grow your network. So everyone, just get involved in open source, contribute to Dennis's project, and remember, it's about adding value. If you find a bug and raise an issue, that is adding value, and you will get a green square. And if someone raises a pull request and you want to review it, you can review it. You won't be able to merge it. That's only for the maintainers, but you can still review it, give feedback. What I love about my open source projects and the Eddie Hub community is by the time I get to review a pull request, it's already had 3 or 4 people review it, and it's in an amazing state. And either I can hit merge, or one of my maintainers already merged it in and they've taken care of it. And I feel that everyone's collaborated really well and learned so much.
That's really cool that you talked about that. I wanted to get into the benefits of it, because that's where I feel like I feel a little bit overwhelmed and guilty. It's weird because I have people committing their time. Like this is not a small task that they're doing. And random strangers that, followed me somewhere, got to know me, are spending their time on a project. And this is an open source project. It's not like I'm not paying them. At some point, I would like to find contributors that I can see who stand out and allocate some kind of budget to them if the project does go. But that's kind of intense. And that's where I kind of struggle with, like, where do they see, or where do they find the benefit? And you mentioned that employers look for that. You found jobs that way, or people have reached out to you. What does that look like? So for the contributor, these people are getting what you would call green squares, right? So I want to pull that up. I'm pretty sure most people know what that looks like, but let me share my screen here. So as you're contributing, you're getting these green squares. And that is telling somebody what about you? It's telling them that you're contributing to the community, that you know what you're doing. Or what does that say to an employer?
So the green squares themselves don't have value, but it's that first impression. Like if you've got a grid on your profile that has lots of green squares, it just shows that you're collaborating with people and contributing to the community and open source. And at the same time, you're upskilling. So the squares themselves, if someone says I got 2,000 green squares, it doesn't mean they're good or they can collaborate with people, but it's the first impression you get. So when you look at this and you see, right, there's some green squares, let me dig deeper and let me see what they do. So you want people to dig deeper, and you got to have the green squares to make them, encourage them.
So at first glance, it just shows activity. Yeah, you're right. Like they can be, a spell check or a correction. They don't really necessarily say something about you, but once people look into it, you're probably not too proud of my green squares, huh?
We need to talk, Dennis. We need to talk.
Hey, I'm getting involved. We'll definitely see a lot more. Yeah. So do people find you on this? Is this something that when you're sending people, like when they're checking out your, let's say, a portfolio website, like I have GitHub linked up. I think I do. Everyone probably should have it linked up because you're showing your projects, but this is where that impression comes in.
Yeah, especially for the bigger clients, the one who pay more, they want to look at this because they don't just want to look at my code today. They want to look, have I improved from today versus 6 months ago? That's why I tell everyone to share as you go along, even if it's not perfect, even if the project's not finished, and actually, especially if the code is not perfect, and especially if the project's not finished, because if you're still learning, you'll always look back at your code and think that was awful, and the project will never be finished. You might give up on that project and work on another project, but the point is that your next project will always be better. So definitely share as you go along. You don't want like a whole weekend of 100 green squares and then nothing for the next 6 months. It needs to be kind of spread out, and so people can see how you've improved as you go along and how you've raised better issues and just collaborated with people. And that's really, really important. That's one thing I look for when I'm hiring for my clients is how do people collaborate with other people? You don't want an amazing coder but can't work with a team. On most projects, there are multiple people on a team.
Yeah, that's what I'm learning right now is the team contribution, like dealing with other people's inputs, like because I'm always so used to making the decision and then that's it. But it's forcing me to take a step back and actually start working with somebody and try to, I guess, meet in the middle on certain assignments and so on. That's definitely fun to see. So you said people have found you, but have they found or have you heard of anybody directly find somebody on GitHub, like to somebody that's contributing to my project, right? So instead of just building up their GitHub portfolio, or let's say their green squares, they're trying to make everything look pretty by contributing to my project. Is there a way that people can find them directly on GitHub? Because I know it has a social feature. I know you can even take in donations. Like if you have a cool project or some kind of open source project, people can actually contribute directly through GitHub and donate or give a tip, whatever. But how does that look? What does that look like?
Yeah, so GitHub has GitHub sponsors where you can sponsor someone. They have different tiers, very much like Patreon, but the great thing is they don't take any commissions. So whatever you sponsor someone on GitHub, they get the full amount. And actually at one point, GitHub were matching all your sponsors. So when I was getting like, I don't know, I've got like 12 or 15 sponsors, I was getting like $100 a month. GitHub at one point were also sending me an additional $100 to match all the sponsors that I got, which was awesome. And I sponsor loads of people on GitHub as well. I just think it's really, really cool. But yeah, people have found me. So, I think HR, recruiters, definitely head of engineering departments, they're not just going to look at your LinkedIn or your Twitter. Obviously, they want to see that, but they actually want to see, what you do with LinkedIn and Twitter and your portfolio. You can write whatever you want, right? I could write, hey, I'm president of the UK or whatever. But on GitHub, it is what it is, right? There's no two ways about it. And I think that's why it's so great. And it is a social network. It's a social platform. It is, you can star someone's project. It's like liking someone's photo on Instagram.
I didn't know that for the longest time. Like I had no idea about the social feature. I just used it because I needed to push some code and that was it. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing like all these interactions and you can look up projects. Like I've never done that. Like this is how new I was to it.
But I think there's lots of people in that boat, which is why it's such a great way to have this conversation. And it's quite interesting how, and we'll have a look at this in a second, but along the tabs on the top on a repo is called a repo because it's a Git repo. But when I started on GitHub, it was just a Git repo. You had no tabs along the top. But now it's not really just a repo. It's actually a project because you have the issue tracking, you have the project board, which is like Trello or Kanban board. You have GitHub Actions, which is CI and CD. You have a wiki. You just have so many things. And I do appreciate it's quite hard for people to pick that up because when I got started, they weren't there. And every time they kind of brought out a new tab, effectively, I could just learn that tab rather than trying to learn, 8 tabs or whatever they've got at the moment. So I do appreciate it's hard for people, but I just recommend everyone get started and don't worry about all the extra stuff. Just get started and you'll pick it up as you go along.
Yeah, I look at your portfolio and it intimidates me right away. Like there's so much customization that you make. It's impressive. Like I'm looking at it, you have your own banners, GIFs in there, all these custom links. I'm assuming that's just a README file. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. So if you make a repo the same name as your username, as you can see, Eddie Jowd /Eddie Jowd, then whatever you put in the README will appear on your profile. But to be honest, I didn't make all of that. I started that and people improved it for me. So what I suggest to everyone, if you want like a customized GitHub profile, people cannot contribute and help you until you create that repo and that file. So once you create that repo and that file, actually GitHub will give you a template that you can get started with some icons and you just fill in your name and your email or whatever you want, your website, and just leave it there if you want. But then someone else can come and make contributions and don't assume people won't. I see so many people who say, I'm not going to sign up to GitHub sponsors. No one's going to give me money. I don't add much value. And then they say, Eddie, I finally signed up like you said, and I got 5 sponsors already. It's like, yes, because you add value. For you, it's easy to do something. But if someone's stuck, it doesn't matter how easy it is for you. For them, it's really, really hard. And so that's why I think people shouldn't belittle what they do. If you add value, it's going to help someone out a lot if they're stuck. I mean, to give an example, when I first started freelancing, one of my first freelancing clients was, I've got this website and I've paid someone to build it for me and I've bought this domain, but I can't put the two together. I can't host it. And I said, well, that's fine. I can deploy it to you. Back then, it was like FTP and all sorts of old stuff. And I did it. And I did it in like, I don't know, an hour or something. And they said, oh my God, you're a genius. That's amazing. And literally, it's not, because for me, I'd done it 100 times in my projects and so forth, that it was easy for me. But for them, it was impossible. They'd said they'd spent months trying to do it for these steps, but they don't know what DNS is. They don't know what FTP is, all the rest. So everyone shouldn't belittle their contributions. It's going to add value to somebody else in the community. If I may talk for one more second and give one more example, There was a project a few years ago that I saw that it said step 1, clone the repo, step 2, npm install. And they got so many requests and confusion by people who were new to Node, for example, who would say, I do npm install, but it says package not found. And because there's actually a missing step, which is cd into the directory that you just cloned. And the maintainers and a lot of people who've been in the industry for a while just assume that's easy. And again, it's easy when you know how. But when they added that step in, they got a lot more contributions. They got a lot more people using their project because it's just made it easier for people rather than people walking away going, this project doesn't work. Well, it does work, but there's just a kind of a missing step where people made the assumption. So yeah, everyone watching, don't make the assumption. If something's missing, even no matter how small it is, it's going to help other people in the community, like lower the barrier to entry for everybody.
That's a really good point. Like I'm having people contribute, or they're showing like, where they're talking about features that they want to add to this project. And some of those features are not like extremely complex, but they're things that I still have to do research on. So I'll just reach out to them and I say, hey, I see you added, for example, somebody's working on a notification feature, right? So if somebody comments on your post or likes a post, you'll see that notification pop up immediately. Like that's something that I'm going to be working on. That might take me a day or two to implement, but somebody else has already worked on that. And it's very simple for them. But for me, I just haven't made that time to do it. So that connection, we just expedited this process by probably 2 days. Like that's really cool to see. I see there that this project right here. So I'm looking at your GitHub repo again. This is to your personal website. So you have 13 contributors wanting to customize your website, which is Eddie. How do you pronounce your last name?
Eddie Jowd, but actually this is not
okay.
the website. This is done with low code for different reasons. But this is not my website. This is my customization of my GitHub profile. So if you click on my first at the top left where you have Eddie Jowd, yeah, just that one. Yeah, if you click on that, I'll go to my profile and you'll see the same thing that you see here. So that README will get pulled into here to customize it. But if you want to go to an interesting project, if you scroll down, there should be one called Stargate. I started quite recently. And there we go.
Here's the people sponsoring you right there. That's pretty neat. I'll have to sponsor some of the people contributing to mine. Like I don't have a crazy budget, but I want to.
But even $1, right? If I say to people, if you want to sponsor someone, I would rather, like if someone says to me, hey, Eddie, I got $10 to sponsor you. Sorry, it's not anymore. I'm like, whoa. Just give me $1 and then give 9 other $1 to other people because it really motivates that person. It really means a lot. So I value my $1 donors as well as, the sponsors who give me $25. So yeah, I don't think it's the value so much. It's more of the actually making an effort to do that. So definitely do that. But the reason why I say bring up this repo, because this repo is actually a client repo. So it's a real project. I'm doing it with best practices in mind. I'm sure it's not perfect. And I'm sure people will have some suggestions. And if you do, please raise an issue and you'll get a green square for raising an issue. But what I love about this is when people are, and this is done in TypeScript. And if people don't know TypeScript, like I know Dennis is a Python person. I know you do front end as well, but let's just assume you do Python only at the moment. Then for me, that adds value because Dennis, for example, could look at this and say, this doesn't make sense. We should do this. We should do this. And that adds value. So if you don't know a technology, don't see it as a negative. I actually really see it as a positive because you got a fresh pair of eyes. You can look at it from a different point of view. But what I love about this project is it's fully automated. So it gets Dockerized. When something gets merged into the default main branch, it gets Dockerized. It gets pushed to the GitHub registry. Then a release is taken with the same number. And then also it's deployed to a Kubernetes cluster. And then it's a Discord bot. So when you type in like the Discord bot command version, it will output the same number. So everything's in sync. Documentation is deployed to GitHub pages. Even our labeling in the issue section is all from code or JSON in the repo. So if someone wants to add a new label, they can send a pull request, and therefore the maintainer, I don't have to be the only one that adds a label. Someone else could add a label. And we're actually following the open source labeling standards. And that's done all on a GitHub action. So you can automate anything on a GitHub action. And we can go into that in more details if you want. I'm more than happy to show you some examples because that's just YAML files. People go, oh, GitHub actions, automation. It's literally just YAML files and you can automate anything. So in JavaScript, we have the package.json file. I'm sure in Python, you have something similar. Anything that you automate with your commands, put them on GitHub actions to run linters, to run automated tests, whatever it is, automate everything is really, really important.
So you're saying you have you would add in contributors. Like, how do you find those people? Because that's what I struggle with. Because if you're adding a contributor to the project, right, you're saying like you're not having to push everything or take in every pull request. do you make sure that they have limited permissions to the project, that they can't just crash it or let's say commit to the master branch, or how does that work?
Sure. So sorry, maybe I explained that slightly wrong. So everyone who contributes comes via a pull request.
Okay.
And so they could be on the project or they could not be on the project. It doesn't matter because the main default branch, which used to be named master, you're right, is protected. Even I can't push. Sometimes I override it, which is a bit naughty. But if I got no one to review it, or it's just a simple change, he says, famous last words. Everything has to go via a pull request. So in an idle situation, everything should go, even the maintainer, because I've raised pull requests before and I get people to review it, and people have spotted things that I didn't spot, or they make an improvement to it. They do say, you realize there's a better way to do this. And I'm like, oh my God, I actually didn't know about it. So although my way might have worked, it wasn't the most efficient way, the cleanest, etc., and so on. And just to go back to the automation, I just remembered one more thing. When we create the release, which is like a git tag, what that means is it's like something that doesn't change. You've got version 1.2.3 and that can't change. You can add more to it and create the next version, but it doesn't change. But we also automatically generate our change log. So in our change log, we'll know what bugs were fixed, what new features were added, and the numbers are all automated, incremented up. So with that project, it's a really good example if people want to automate everything. So you don't have to worry about, should I take a tag? What's the next version number? Is it a minor? Is it a major? Is it a build number? It just happens all automatically. And again, with a few lines of YAML, you can do that.
Wow. I feel like that's a little bit out of what it's definitely out of my scope for now. Like I'm just trying to maintain a project here, make sure nothing breaks.
I'm definitely going to have to dig into your project and have a proper look. You'll be surprised with a little bit of, just a small bit of effort. You'll make it stand out. You'll make your life a lot easier.
Yeah. So before we get into that, then I want to show you my approach, or I'll talk about my approach, and I want to know, because this is where I'm getting insight now. I want to know if I'm going about this the right way. So I started this project. I let everybody know. I created the Discord server. It's got a bunch of members in there now, and the whole idea. By the way, that Discord server is linked up if you want to join. The whole idea is to build out the MVP, so the minimal viable product, and then have people start contributing to that. And I'm assuming that's the right way. Like you don't want to just start a project and then have people just start shooting code left and right. Like you need some kind of foundation and do that. So my plan is to build out that minimal viable product, set the scopes to that project, and then allow people to really start contributing to it. Like one thing that I did before that though, is I also decided to build out our own UI kit. And I had some people join for that, and they built out this UI kit. So this is actually on that GitHub repo for things like the buttons, the cards we're going to use on the website. Like this isn't done by me. This is complete, I guess, not strangers anymore, but this is people that just completely volunteered their time to build this right here. So we have that. So the UI kit, I'm allowing people to contribute to, even though I did have to set like the standard of like, what are the colors we're using? What styles do we want to stick to for the content and what the actual cards on the website look like? But is that the right way to go about that? Like, I'm assuming you want to have that base first. You don't want just to start from scratch.
I think you're right about the base, but my base is different. So I used to think like you as well. I think I used to want to put kind of how to run the automated tests, how to do this, how to run the linters, have it all set up and then get people started. Whereas now I'm more about like, do I have Husky? So therefore the commit messages follow the right standard and stuff like that. For me, it's actually less about the code, because we can make improvements to that. So let me think of an example. If someone, let's give a really crude example, and we'll take your UI as an example. If someone puts a button on the page and it hasn't got curved corners, but it works, it's clickable, and maybe it's off to the left, doesn't look the best, but that's already adding value to the project, right? It works. People can click it, it can do whatever it needs to do. If you want to move it to the right, make it bigger, a bit more padding, make it have rounded corners, that can come later. And the value that adds is a little bit less, actually. Would you rather have it had curved corners, looked wonderful on the correct side of the page, but didn't work? No, the value is actually in it working. And when you log into, I don't know, GitHub or Facebook, if the button was, I don't know, not aligned, it's like to the side and didn't have rounded corners, you wouldn't care. You could log in and do what you needed to do. So for me, you're right about the foundations, definitely. But I think over the years, I've kind of open source, I've thought the foundations of the actual code is less important, because as long as it's good enough, I'm not saying, put in anything bad, but as long as it's good enough and adds value to the project, we get it in, and then someone can make an improvement later. And that's why I really like small features and small pull requests, because we can get them in faster. And if I give another crude example, we had someone who said, look, Eddie, you haven't got a contributing.md file. Let me make that for you. I'll get back to you in a month or two. It's going to be like 2 pages long. It's going to be epic. Like, so the value for the project and the community is going to have to wait like 1 or 2 months. And then in the open source world might mean 3 months because people get busy. No, just create the file and put one line of value in it. Like, it might just say, any questions, ask in Discord. Here's the Discord link. But that's already adding value to the people who are new to the project. And because you've got that file now, other people then can add more lines and then add more value to it. And then over time, it will probably grow a bit, maybe shrink a bit as more people add improvements, make it more concise, grow a bit. But over time, it's going to get better. But the value to the community straight away. So yeah, I agree with you, but I do also understand try and get value to the community sooner and try and get people on board sooner as well, and make sure that what they contribute is tiny so that it still adds value, but it's small enough that you can review it really quickly. Like if the pull request is over, I don't know, over a page, I'm like, I'm more likely to say you just split this up into multiple pull requests. There are exceptions to that, but
really,
rule of thumb, yeah.
Wow, I'm doing a lot more than that as far as like the pages. Like I'm waiting till I have like a big pull request to send up, and then I'll make the change it. But I guess my example would be this. Like, I made the login page. Let's go to the website actually. So I make this login page, or I built out, the standard page right now. If we check this one out, now it does have issues here, but what happens is I build this page and then people will start making changes with it, but they started completely redesigning the page. And that's where it was like, whoa, okay. We need to set some kind of standard, because I can't have the UI being changed every single couple of hours. Like, they would completely redesign this. And that's where I'm kind of having the issues, because at one end, somebody put their time and energy into this and made the changes. So I don't want that to go to waste. I don't want to block their pull request, or what's the term? Sure. Cancel it, or, but I do need to set that standard. So that's where I decided, okay, once I build it out, once I go through the basic functionality, like we have our login page, we can go to a user. What does a user look like? What does a discussion look like? Then I can have people contribute to that. So that was more of my thought process, was get that structure out.
I mean, that makes sense. And if you've got the time to do all that, then you've got a really good vision. But you could have, I suppose, done something in like Adobe XD where you show them what it looks like, and then they could have done it that way. And if you had set up a lot of the classes, maybe they could have just reused that, and then they could have built it. So it's more, I think, as a maintainer, it's more about setting the standards. So you're absolutely right. You want that consistency, but also I encourage people to raise an issue first. So therefore they raise an issue before they do the work, because someone might say, hey, I want to move the profile icon at the top and notification at the top, and I want to put it in a footer along the bottom. They might spend a week on that, because that's how long it takes them to learn how to do it, understand the project, get up and running, all that sort of stuff. And then you might say, no, thank you. And you're right. That is really hard. Like, it's awful to say no, thank you to something. Yep. You definitely don't want it, but they've put in a lot of work. So I always encourage everybody to raise an issue first and check with the maintainer that it is what they want. And they might say, great idea, but actually, could you do something slightly different? So they still kind of want the basis of the idea, but they might tweak it. And you're only having a conversation in the issue rather than actually making the changes, which could have taken a lot of time.
So you're saying, I've never done that, by the way. So you're saying it's good to, if it's a big change, to raise an issue first, maybe ask the question if this should be done, and then submit the pull request, work on it and submit it, right?
I think for almost everything, raise the issue first for 2 reasons. One, because the maintainer or someone else in the community might have an idea of how to improve it, or say this is actually a duplicate of this, or this conflicts with this, whatever the reason. Definitely raise the issue first. And also you get an extra green square for raising the issue. So you get a green square for the issue, you get a green square for the commits, and you get a green square for the pull request. So maybe the pull request you'll submit tomorrow, but if you raise an issue today, you got a green square for today and a green square for tomorrow. And it also shows good practice, because then when you raise the pull request, at the top of the description, you can say closes hash and a number like 1, 2, 3 of the issue. So therefore, when the maintainer closes the pull request or merges the pull request, it automatically closes the issue. So it makes it a bit easier. So again, not again, how can I say this? As a suggestion to a maintainer, I would say raise some issues that you want people to work on, and maybe give them like levels. Like this is, I don't know, you could give them t-shirt sizes like easy, medium, or hard, or you could give them story points like, Fibonacci 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. And some people might pick a 5, some people might pick a 1, but they know they don't know what the size of 1 is or what size of 5 is, but they know the 5 is 5 times the work of the 1, if that makes sense. So that's quite good, and I think people like that because it's a standard that people use a lot at work, or they might not use it, but they might use it in the future. So raising it, and you can use a project board. So there's a project tab at the top. You can put your issues on a project board, and you can move things around.
I have a lot to learn. Definitely want to use that. If any of the moderators from the Discord server are watching, definitely take note of that. We'll have to, because I had a lot of people reach out and say, hey, I'm really good at maintaining Discord projects or GitHub projects. So take note. Let's do that. Let's apply it, because that seems very useful. So before we get to it, I see people are wanting us to clone the project. I do want to get to that right now.
Let's do it.
One other concern, just I'm assuming I kind of know the answer to it. It's just something that you're gonna have to deal with. But for example, the design, right? Like I'm assuming you want to add in like, hey, this is how we name our classes. This is what we're using in the UI kit. Please try to follow these standards. But yeah, things like that. Like let's say, like right now I'm building in the comment thread here. I thought my screen was open. So I'm building in the comment thread here. So when you click on this right here, it's going to expand it. I would love to just ask somebody to build that out for me, but they also don't know what the API call is going to look like. So it's hard to understand how to build that in until we have that request, right? So maybe the classes to go ahead.
So I was going to say, when you say they don't know what the API call is that because the API hasn't been built yet, or it's built and there's no documentation?
Yeah, it's being developed right now. So that's kind of like where I'm trying to do both. Like in theory, what I'm doing right now actually is this is all from a JavaScript file. So I designed the API by just creating like a JSON file.
Perfect.
So I designed that first, and then I designed my database based on around that, because I have to turn that into an API anyways. It's a relational database. I turn it into a JSON file by serializing it. So I'm doing that, and it's making sense. But once the actual code comes out, what if they start using class names that I'm not familiar with, or things that aren't up to par? Like you want to probably always add a note and say, hey, please rename your classes or design something that looks more like, ABC or something like that. Let more of a concern, I guess. I don't think there's necessarily a solution to it, but yeah, I just wanted to see what you thought about that.
No, that's a really good point. So you're right. I like how you did the JSON, because then you can kind of work in both directions. You've got the middle of your app where the front and back end talk, and you can, if you agree the contract, then someone else can do the API, and then someone else can do the UI, and they know what data is going to be sent. That's brilliant. But in terms of with components on the front end, can you not have a lot of components that are potentially probably reused? If you try and get someone to build a component, but it might not be, I don't know React, but I'm assuming it's similar to Angular. Can you not get someone to build the component that isn't maybe in place, and then you can kind of agree it and put it in?
I see what you're saying. So basically add that like to the UI kit, like make a components library for that. So like right now we have a standard for buttons, right? Like if you want to use this button right here, you see the code, you just do BTN main. So if we had like a comment component, like we have a card here. So you're saying build them out in different sections, and then that way when I'm implementing it, it's easier to update my code base and the UI kit. Okay, I see that. That makes sense.
Exactly, and it sounds like I'm saying, I'm probably really sounding really preachy, and this is the way it should be done. I think every project does it slightly differently, but I think there's a lot of overlap and on the way to do it. But then you might tweak it for your community, for your workflow, for your needs, your speed. There's so many things. So I think it's if you do tweak certain things, and I'm saying that is fine. And I'm always learning every time I do a new project as well. I get feedback from other people, and I'm always kind of making improvements to that. So it's not easy, definitely not easy. I mean, one thing that I also like to do sometimes is you've got the JSON file that agrees the contract between both of them. So in the ticket for the UI, if you're doing them as separate issues, then because sometimes we do vertical steel threads. So I'd have whoever does the UI will do the back end, and I'll make it as simple as possible just to kind of get it working and have a lower fidelity, and I'll add more and more fidelity to it. But sometimes with different technologies, if you've got Python and JavaScript, you might have different people do it. So what you might do there is, have the JSON contract, and then in the front end ticket, you'll say, this is the data that you're going to get from this endpoint. And you could always have a branch on Git and on GitHub where you have the Python backend just returning some hard-coded JSON, like the work hasn't been done, but then the front end can actually make a HTTP request, and from their point of view, it is real. And you could also then I use Cucumber and Gherkin from automated testing wrapped around Cypress for the front end. And so I can actually write the test of what I want to succeed in plain English. So I can say, given I'm on what page was that? Was that the feed page, do you call it?
Yeah, so that's just like the home feed. Like when you log into, like, let's say Twitter, this is going to be what you see here. So like what everyone's posting, I guess. Yeah, like a feed.
Okay, so I would say, given I'm on the feed page, when I click on the item and the button, whatever, then I expect to see this, and it will look for it, and then that test will fail. But that test will be part of that front end feature, so that person will know their work isn't complete. It still might need reviewing and improvements, but they won't know it's functionally complete until that test automatically passes, if that makes sense. So I'd create a branch. Like if this was issue 123, then I would say issue 123. We might even put, like I said, the Gherkin syntax that I mentioned, given when then is what we call it. And then it would run on CI and it would fail. Obviously, there's no code there. But when they add the code to make it work, it should then pass. And they know that theirs is functionally working. It might need some reviewing in terms of, you might want styles changed. You might want the coding style changed as well. But hopefully you've got linting, you've got, all the other standard, like prettier and linting, all the other bits and pieces that you need to make sure all those kind of boring things, like when you see a pull request and you see extra space, extra blank line missing, I don't know, it should be formatted differently. I just think that's the kind of waste of energy and time from people. So I try and use automated tools like, linter and prettier and so on, that gets that out the way, so the person will know that they need to sort that out already. And then when you have a conversation, you're talking about the actual kind of more in-depth, valuable stuff.
Okay. Yeah. As far as like best practices, I would follow your method. I know everyone has their own style. We'll customize it, but I fully trust yours. You clearly have the experience. Yeah.
But this looks really cool though. I do like the look of this. Maybe I will contribute some automated tests. Are you doing automated testing yet?
No.
Okay.
I'm building out the front end. I have part of the back end built out, but I'm pretty much merging those two. So my style is to, like, when I start a project, because a lot of people were curious about how that flow even goes, so not to go too far into that, I always create like a sandbox environment. So what I do is like, I don't really draw up my code. Like I'll maybe put it on paper, what the scopes are, what it should look like, but I just like to get coding and get started. And I will just start with like the template, what it's going to look like, and then I'll just go to the database and I'll code the database up and start building out the API for like half a day. And then I'll go back and forth and I'll add in a feature. And then what I'll do is I'll take a copy of that project, queue it somewhere, just kind of save it for myself, start a completely new project and start working off my old code base. Take all the things that I didn't like from that project. And this is that time where I'm not having anybody contribute. This is like just for me to see. Okay. And I'm trying to get an idea in my head of what the project is going to look like. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And that the database and the API that I have, it's not public. It's somewhere in my folders because I have like 3 different versions of it now, because each time I'm taking away, and sometimes it's easier to start fresh than it is for me to fix my code. So that way, like, I might not like how I did something in the last project, but at least I have that stored so I can go back to it and see how I did that one specific part. Like in this case, I'm working on like a share option and a retweeting option. So I already built that in, but I need to look back at my old code, but I don't want to delete it either. So yeah, that was just kind of I guess my method of going about that. But if
whatever works for you, I think. So I think that's really good. If that works for you, then I think, maybe you can like tweak it, maybe use GitHub more. You might better use GitHub gists. You might better use branches. You might do other things, but it sounds like it works for you. So which is the most important thing. I think some people try and force something because someone else said it's the perfect way to do it, but it doesn't work for them, makes them go slower, makes them hate the project, which is definitely not the right thing to do.
Yeah. So you want to try to clone it and give this a test, because I think it'd be cool for people, for everyone to see that.
Let's do it. I see we've got Mercy Pink from the Eddie Hub community. We've got so many people from the Eddie Hub community. Hey everyone, collaborate and network with all of Dennis's awesome community. And they're asking, can they contribute to the project? Yes, you can, because I'm going to do that now as well.
So we have a link right now. So I'm going to post that in the comment section. The only thing that is on GitHub right now is the UI kit. What you're seeing right here is still locally. So this UI kit is the only thing that's live. So if we want to just clone this right now, contribute, push it, I'll accept the pull request, I'm assuming. So I'm going to go ahead and post that. That's in the comment section. That's our UI kit. In the UI kit, you're going to see a link for the GitHub repo right here. If you go to this is the GitHub repo to the project now pretty soon, probably tonight, I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to make it tonight. I don't want to make a promise, but by tonight I should have the front end code right here, and I'm going to work on the back end. So this is this is something that was made by somebody in the community, this UI kit here. So let me close all this out. And should we share your screen here? Should we jump to that?
Yeah, we can. I know someone asked also about my camera. I'm using the Sony A7 R3, and this is kind of like the behind the scenes setup if you want to kind of have a quick look, and I can geek out with someone later on.
Yeah, I see myself back there.
Okay. Let me share my screen as well, and we can start geeking out. I've missed so many awesome messages in the chat, so I really apologize, everyone. It's just chat's going so fast, and I didn't want to miss out on what Dennis was saying as well.
We'll have to jump into that, by the way. So yeah, I see some of the contributors right here. They're already on. One of my moderators.
Nice.
Okay, so you got the link. I'm gonna try to pin that maybe.
Yeah, if you could actually.
Okay, so let me see if I can do that from YouTube.
Oh no, I've got it now. Actually, I'm okay. I think I've got it.
Okay, so I just pinned the message for anybody else that wants to see that. So that's just the UI kit.
Cool. Okay, and this is let me make it a bit bigger. We can see that.
Okay, so this is Eddie's screen now. So he's on the project. You're gonna go to the GitHub repo and then clone it, right? Or fork it, clone it. Awesome.
Yep. So I'm going to fork it. I'm not going to clone it because by cloning it, it means I bring it locally. I'm going to do this all within the browser. Within the browser on GitHub. So I'm going to support Dennis straight away by giving a star. I think people don't realize that adding a star really helps support people. So do that. So yes, if I want to make a change, this is how simple it is if you make a change. Let's see what we can do. What improvements can we suggest? So let's have a look. You've got links, you've got screenshots. Love the screenshots. Really good. Let me see if I can find an improvement. Everyone have a look around and see what improvements you think.
I guess we can add the Discord server link to that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Join the discussion, and that's in the YouTube comment description or comment section.
Yeah.
Let me I can post that in here too.
Cool, I've got that. So everyone, all you need to do is find the file you want to make the change to. And if there's loads of source files in there and you know what you want to search for, you can also search the top. It can search the repo or it can search the whole of GitHub. So in this case, I want to add it to the README. So I'm just going to click on the README, and then you get a pen at the top right, and I'm going to hit edit. And it's going to tell me that it's going to fork it into my account automatically for me. So GitHub takes care of this for me. You can do the steps manually yourself by clicking fork, and then it will add it to my project. But I'm going to be a bit lazy. I'm just going to hit the edit button, and it goes straight into edit. But it says you don't have permission to write to this, so we've created a fork.
Eddie, can you zoom in a little bit? It's a little bit tough to see, I think, if someone's on a phone.
Better?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit better. Yep.
Cool. So, yes, and I see people suggesting contributing guidelines. I want to show you a trick to some of those in a moment. Actually, remind me in a second. I think it was Faisal and so forth. Remind me in a second. We will look at that. So links. So we've got the UI kit. Okay, so I want to add one underneath. I want to do it in bold. Keep consistent. When you contribute to someone else's project, it's really important to follow their style. Even if you don't agree with the style, it's good to follow it. So for me, I don't agree with it because the whole line is in bold. I don't like that. I prefer only part of it being in bold. But it's not my project. And if you were to make an improvement to someone's formatting, do that in a different pull request if you're adding a line. So in this case, I'm adding a line, say, for example, Discord. There's no point me reformatting the line above it because it makes it harder for the maintainer to understand what's going on. But also, they might want one of them and not the other. So say, for example, I added the Discord link and Dennis didn't want the reformatting, and I've done the reformatting in the same pull request, well, he's going to say no to the whole thing or ask me to make more changes. Whereas if I do it as two pull requests, he can accept one and say no thank you to the other.
Really good point, by the way, because I've had that where I've liked the changes, but they've modified so many other things in the same pull request that I've had to sit down and try to modify that pull request or just completely block it or I guess decline it and say this isn't going to work because I can't fix all this, and just maybe write that in the comment. But that makes sense to have smaller pull requests.
Yeah, if people want their pull request to get merged, make it smaller, and in the description put a screenshot before and after. If it's a visual, make it as easy as you can for the maintainer. And if you chat with the maintainer in Discord and then you go raise an issue or a pull request, please do not say following our discussions, I've made changes A. It's like, great. We've had 100 discussions today. Which one are you talking about? You can say following our discussion, but go get a screenshot or copy and paste from Discord the actual discussion. And therefore, other people who weren't involved in the discussion can also understand your issue or your pull request. Because if there's more than one maintainer, they might not have been involved in that discussion. So when they're reading that, they think, well, what discussion? Whereas if you've got the kind of context, it's really important, and it will help you find a job and do interviews better and all the rest. So I've made a change. I've just hit on preview at the top. So before I submit this, or I could submit it badly and Dennis can write a comment and I can make some more changes if you want. But this is what I've done. Dennis, what do you think so far?
I'll approve.
Do you want me to make it bad so you can put an inline comment in?
Sure. Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Okay,
does that mean that I can't accept a pull request, or am I modifying that?
It means you're not accepting it, you're not rejecting it. You're just gonna say, actually, I kind of want to accept it, but I need you to make a change first. So I want to remove the bold, so it's inconsistent with the top. So now if we look, UI kit is bold, but Discord is not. So I'm going to submit that. So you scroll to the bottom, and this is going to make a commit. And what a commit is, it's like saving the file or saving the changes. And it's really good to be descriptive. There are conventions for this. And so I do use conventional commits where you write like feature, or you write fix, or you write docs. So in this case, I don't know if you want me to just use this, or you'd rather I didn't. I could just say,
no, I love your methods. I'm hoping my community sees this. I'll post this in that server. So whatever you feel is best, do that. That way they can follow it.
Awesome. So the great thing about doing this, from doing the commits like this, you can generate change logs, you can generate the releases. Like this is like underpins so much of the automation. So it's really good to get this right, even if you don't use it straight away. So I'm going to go docs, and docs wouldn't bump the version of the release. A fix would bump the build number. A feature would bump the minor number, and then a major would be bumped manually. So I'm going to say docs, Discord link. There's no point saying, like when people write sometimes, if I just cut that, people write sometimes updated readme. We know from the pull request and the commit that it's been updated. So it doesn't add value. Remember, everything you do has to add value. So in this case, it's going to be
guilty of that.
Me too. And then people, I might say this and kind of preach it, and then people say, Eddie, this didn't make sense to me. And you just get better each time. That's why giving people feedback I love getting feedback, because it's just always improving. And actually, the other thing I should do, has anyone pointed this out in the chat? I'm surprised. Vi, you didn't point this out. You're usually eagle eyes. I didn't raise an issue first. So I want to get an extra green square, and I want to make sure Dennis is happy to accept this. So I'm going to say Discord link in the README. I'll say I think we should add the Discord
this is awesome
link. Cool. Okay, cool. And I've got the link somewhere. I did have it open somewhere. I've lost it again. Here we go. And really, we should have issue templates to make it easier for people, but we can get into that later on. And I'll show you how you can create some templates.
So you raise an issue, I should get the alert, right? Okay,
I see. So I want to submit that. I even put the link that I want to add, because you might say that's the wrong link. I want to add a tracking link. I want to add a different link. So when people say, so everyone watching, when you say you want to add a link, be specific about the link you want to add. So therefore, the maintainer can make sure it is the right link. It's just saving that kind of back and forth. So collaboration and communication is important, but you want to have it on the important stuff, not on the you're missing a space, you're using the wrong link, like little things, because that kind of tires everybody out.
So now,
sorry, go on.
I was just saying, so now on my end, I can see that issue, but go ahead and finish what you were saying.
No, I was going to say now Dennis should have a notification, and hopefully we'll reply. Like that's a good idea. Or
Speaking
something.
of right there, that's something that was just done. That's why I laughed about that. Okay, so we see an issue. So we're in the project or in the repo. I go to issues and I see two of them. So these are both committed by. Okay, so somebody said add a site description. Okay, so this is what's the name?
Thank you, V. Thank you.
V. Okay, so description. So what do I do? I'm typically just responding to the description, or just saying yes, we need this. No, we don't.
Yeah, so you might say, great idea, thank you very much. With the repo description, only the maintainer can update it. So there won't be a pull request unless this is, this is going to be on, if I go to the repo, I'm guessing there isn't one. Oh, there is a description. So maybe there is, I didn't read the whole issue. Let me read it properly.
Okay, so I'm responding to your thing. I gave you a comment, right? I'm responding to
Yeah.
your issue. So this lets you know that, okay, yes, we should make this change. And you're going to get the notification, I'm assuming. Here, if I go back to
Yep.
yours.
Yep. So let me see. Yep. You can see that it's come up. Let's do it.
I spelled do
Awesome.
with 2 O's.
That's all right. And then what I'm going to do now is, okay, now I'll go and make the edit, and Dennis is happy with it. So I'm actually going to make the pull request. This is the commit that we were coming to a moment ago before I raised the issue. Discord link. And so now what I would do in my commit is I would include the reason why I paused and wanted to raise the issue. I want to use this number, and this is the format. The reason for this is when you generate a change log, when you look at the commits history, GitHub will automatically make this into a link to the issue. So if you want to see what discussion was on behind this, it just makes it convenient. So I'll show you that all in a minute. So now I'm going to propose the changes. GitHub will take me to the pull request, and you'll see it's populated it from Eddie Mumble, and it's automatically named my branch to patch 1 into Dennis's Mumble and the branch master.
I had a question about that.
Sure.
Is that the best? I mean, I'm assuming that's not best practice. Should I open up another branch for that? How does that work?
No, that's fine. You can have a develop branch if you want. It depends on the project. I started using that a lot less now because I want smaller changes and I want to get them in faster. So no, that's fine, because it's not going to end up in master until you accept it. So I'm just proposing this goes from my branch in my repo to your branch in your repo. It's just a proposal.
Makes sense. Okay.
And then GitHub it says I've got a commit, so you can see this commit, and we'll get back to that in a second. And it's showing me my changes. So it's showing my changes. I'm still happy with that. So I'm going to raise a pull request, hit create, and it's already pre-populated the name and the title. And I could take a screenshot as well if I want to, just to save time. I'm not going to, but I'm going to say closes just to help the maintainers. And so issues don't get left behind. It closes issue 10. So when this gets closed or merged, GitHub will automatically close the issue for us automatically. And I'd recommend putting a screenshot, a description, and so on. But just for time, I'm going to leave that out.
I'm learning so much, and I love it. I get excited when I learn, so this is cool.
Awesome. So now that's created. There are no automation checks, so it's kind of passed. It's got the green tick. If you had automation checks, it would be running all those automations, and that's it. So you can see the file changes. That's what I did. No, it's okay. And then I want Dennis to review it and tell me that I didn't keep into the same formatting that was there already.
Okay, so here's our conversation. I see that Eddie liked it, made a couple of comments here. I see a pull request right here.
That's a good point, actually. Sorry, if you could go back to that. That's a really good point. So because I put closes in the repo, in the history of the issue, if you look down the logs, you can see that commit, my commit message, but you can also see the pull request as well. So it's all tying everything together. So definitely use the issue number to tie everything together, the commit, the pull request, and the issue. Therefore, it's really easy to navigate around.
So before we get to Eddie's, then I see a couple other ones right here. Martin just added, I think we should add dependencies. Yes, I agree. I'll just say yes. Martin, I'm assuming you're watching a live stream, so I don't think I respond that lame. I would normally say something, maybe a smiley face. Okay. So we'll go back to the pull request now. So Eddie submitted the pull request. Now I see a few others here. This was number 10. So in here, I can see the commits that you made. I can see the files that changed or that were changed. And I can see this is a GitHub README. This was what added or what was added. Okay, I like it.
But what I would suggest, if you hover over the line, the green line, so green will be added, red will be removed, and then you'll have an updated one will be a light green with dark green of actually what characters were changed. But yes, there's a plus there. So you could put a comment in there if it's specifically for that line, or you could do it in the conversations for the whole of the pull request. But I would say do it in line, and you can do two things here. So if you click on that plus, you could write, thank you, but it's not the same formatting, but don't submit it in a second. I won't tell you why, but yeah, let's make it bold like the line above, for example. Yeah, and you could submit that and I can make the change, but there's some awesome powerful things you can do again to reduce that kind of conversation back and forth. So what I would suggest is if you go to your next line, you can actually, sorry, by hitting enter, sorry, is what I mean. So the next line in the comment. Yeah. And if you look at the toolbar on the top, there's a plus minus sign, and that means suggesting a change. There's the first one before the H, and there's a plus minus. So if you click that, GitHub will put that into your comment. And then if you copy that line and duplicate it, so inside the suggestions, inside the backticks, copy that whole line, and just change the without the suggestion. Yeah.
Oh, just modify this, basically, you're saying.
Oh, no. Keep that line. You need the minus, but we want to add a plus. So copy the minus Discord, join here and the link, put it below, and change the minus to a plus, and change it to what you want. So wrap it in a double asterisk to make it bold. So basically what you're telling GitHub and me is that you've made the change. Like sometimes it's too hard to explain like what you want, or they might get back to you in like a few days. It just delays everything. So Dennis has the option to actually make the suggestion. He can't commit it because it's my repo now. So although I'm suggesting that the pull request goes into Dennis's repo, these changes are not in Dennis's repo, they're in mine. So actually Dennis cannot make changes to my repo because he doesn't have permission, but he can make a suggestion. So this just makes it easier. And then I'll show you on my screen, I can just hit accept. It will come into my repo, and then Dennis can accept the actual whole pull request if you want. It's just a suggestion.
Let's do it. So it's just like that, right?
And the closing one at the end as well.
Was it just 1 or 2 at the closing end?
2, so they match, a bit like HTML.
So start review, right?
A start review starts a more of a conversation. Add single comments, what I usually use. It's just a lot simpler. And then on my screen.
So it shows that technically we're trying to remove that, and then I see the modification. Okay. Exactly.
And so on my screen, in fact, this is actually a great example. For some reason, it's got it twice. I don't know why. I didn't actually. You only had it once. I don't know why.
I think I copied and pasted it without removing it, right? Or something like that.
It should usually have both. But either way, I don't want a suggestion, right? I can just say, thank you, I will make the change. And I can show everyone how to make a new change to an existing pull request. So I'm at a single commit. And that's fine. I don't have to accept it. But to make a change to this, so you don't want to go back to Dennis's repo, because if I went back to Dennis's repo and did what we did before and hit the edit button, it's probably going to make a new pull request. And you don't want that. So what you do is you go to your existing pull request that you've got open, and you can just go edit file. And then you can just make the change there and then. And I can make the change. Double quotes back and forth. Check the preview. Always check it. And it's showing me what I've changed.
So you modified the pull request, right? The initial pull request?
Exactly.
Okay, awesome.
And then I'll do another commit. And I can say it's a docs change. And I can say Discord link in bold. And I want to say it still belongs to issue 10, because what will happen is if you do the change log and you get multiple commits because you don't squash the commits, then it will group them together for you. So if I put 11 here, it would keep it as a separate change in the change log when we automate it later. So it's good to be consistent. I could start a new branch if I wanted to, but I'm going to commit to the same branch. And if I hit the commit changes, now it's still only showing one line change. Oh, I need to refresh. It's telling me to refresh. I'm still only doing one line change, but you can see there's 2 commits. So there's 2 commits. There's the first one I did and the second one. And Dennis can now choose. The comment's gone. And if you go to the conversations tab, it will say that it's outdated.
Okay, so here's the change right here. We modified that. If I go back to pull request, Discord link. So I approve everything. Everything looks good. All I have to do is hit merge request, right?
And there's 3 types of merges you can do in Git. I'll just stick to 2. One is merge pull request. What it will do will take both my commits, and in your history, you'll have those 2 commits. But if you click on the right drop down next to the merge thing, you should have squash. So you could squash my 2 commits into one if you want it. It's entirely up to you. It depends on how you manage things and how you want it.
So, and also just to let people know, so I'm going to click this right now. But if there is a conflict in that was kind of interesting to look at. If 2 people commit to some code or something was modified before you made your changes, that will usually show you. So right now we see that there is no conflicts. It tells us that everything looks good, right? Somewhere here should tell us.
Yeah, the green square, because you've got the button open, I think you'd have to, if you scroll down a bit more, yeah, it's got the green tick there above it. This branch has no conflicts with the base branch.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, so we'll squash and merge, and this should do it. So now if I look at my GitHub repo, so it merged it, looks good. There we go.
And you have
so
the Discord link
now on my GitHub repo. There we go. Awesome.
And the issue would have been closed, but people can see that in the history if they wanted to. The pull request is gone, the issue's closed, but you can still get to both from the commit history as well. So it's just that kind of having that, I guess, that convenience of getting around the project. So yeah, that's cool. So that's how simple it is to make an improvement to someone else's project. So everyone, I do make improvements to someone's project to reduce conflicts. Keep your pull requests smaller. That the more lines you change, the more chances you're going to have a conflict. And there's nothing worse than, I know a lot of people say, hey, I want to contribute to React because it's the biggest and most popular project. A project like that moves so fast. So even if you make a few lines of changes, you'll probably likely get a conflict, because by the time it gets reviewed, say 2 days later, and by the time you get back to it a day after that, 100 pull requests have probably gone in, and they're more likely to get a conflict. So don't just go for the biggest projects until you get used to the workflow, because it's really disheartening as well.
Yeah, can definitely imagine that. Okay, so well, I have a few more questions. I'm gonna start getting to comments. Ed, if you have time, let me know. We're at 1 hour and 6 minutes. Let me know what your time is looking like.
This is open source. I enjoy geeking out. This is me. I'm on a holiday now. This is perfect.
Perfect. Okay, so I had a few of them written down. You were talking and ideas were starting to kind of flow here. I had a suggestion right now, or I had somebody suggest in the Discord server about the front and back end, right? So I'm going to host them all in the same server. So I'm going to have the Django back end, the React front end, and Django is just going to serve that. Now there's different ways you can do that. You can create the API separately and completely separate that. My question was, should I keep that separate as far as the GitHub, or as far as what the community sees? So for example, we have a bunch of front-end developers, we have back-end developers. Should they all see the same project and try to maybe filter through those files, or should I try to completely put that out differently for them? Like in our case, in my project right now, all I have is the UI kit. Let me just add this right here. So we have a UI kit, and I was going to add a front-end folder and a back-end folder. Would you recommend completely separating those?
There's pros and cons to both. So having multiple projects in one, like a front and a back end, maybe a mobile in the future, etc., is we call mono repo, where you have one big repo of lots of stuff. There are pros and cons to that. It is convenient that you keep everything in sync. So therefore, when you update your API, that the front end is going to work with it, it makes things like that a lot easier. The downside is it's very off-putting, because someone in the front end has now cloned a repo where it's got Python in it. They might be a JavaScript developer or a React developer, for example. Yep, and then they've got this code, and they just want something to work. They just want an API up and running. They just want, like, I don't know, a Docker image where they can just run it and it's just running there, or mock it out, whatever they're going to do. And so that can be quite off-putting for a lot of people, and vice versa, right? You have the Python people might not want React in there. So I'm always on the fence. It depends on the project, depends on the people, and so forth. I've done both many times, and to be honest, it depends also how you're deploying it. So, for example, with the Stargate project that I'm doing, it's using Astra. Stargate is their open source project, but it's using like their Cassandra database in the cloud called Astra. But we're actually moving, hopefully, I'm going to move our other project, like our Discord bot and other bits and pieces, to that too. So I want to deploy them at different times. I don't want to deploy the whole lot. I want to deploy them at different times. So having them separate makes more sense. And they're different technologies. You've got different people. I've got different maintainers, because if you've got a maintainer for the back end, you probably have to give them access to the whole repo, but they could merge stuff in the front end where they shouldn't do. And again, it comes down to trust. That might not be an issue, but I think they'll get notifications for everything. You can do code owners. So you could say, right, the backend folder, I get notified, for example. And if it's a front end folder, you get notified, rather than us both getting notified for everything. So you can customize it further, but I might not want to know about the pull requests or the issues that are raised on the back end. I only care about the issues on the front end or vice versa. So I think having them separately is better. Sometimes it's worth bringing it together, but I think only once you've got a pain point. I would personally advise everybody to have them separate, and later on, if it becomes painful, then potentially bring them together rather than bring them together and separate later. Because even automation becomes a bit harder, because if there's changes, you're going to have to now check for folder changes. So, because if you want to run, say, the Python automated test or the front end Cypress test, you're going to have to not going to want to run that if certain things aren't changed. You'd have to then in your GitHub action then not only check for which branch has a change, you have to check for which folders and files. I think it makes it a bit harder. So I personally would have 3 repos for what you said, the UI kit. Because if you're deploying the UI kit, you're probably not going to want to redeploy the Python and the you're not going to want to bring your app down for a few seconds because you're deploying the UI kit, which might get deployed 10 times a day, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So at some point, I think I'll completely separate the UI kit and make it its own thing. But yeah, I get your point. It definitely is project based. But the fact that the option of separating them makes sense, and that the fact that you approve of that gives me comfort, and that's probably the direction I'll go. I'm looking for reassurance there because I don't see any issues with it. I can absolutely do that, but I just want to know, I guess, what the keen of GitHub or open source thinks about that.
Yeah, I think monorepo makes some things slightly easier, but I think it makes some things, many more things harder. So having them separate first, and then if there's a reason to bring them together, then do it. But otherwise, have them separate because you're going to have different actions. You're going to have just different notifications. Otherwise, you have a longer issue list because you'll have issues of front end and back end, and it'll be confusing for people. You can put labels on it. Yes, you can separate them on different boards, but again, it's just more admin, I think, rather than it's probably not needed. I don't think there's not that many benefits.
Okay. So I also had an issue. This is, I guess, more for the maintainer of the project, but I also had an issue when it comes to security. In the back end, like there's going to be things like database passwords, API keys, and so on. Those are not in the project itself. Those are going to be put into environment variables. But I was wondering if there's things that are, if there's something that I should look out for, if there's maybe a way to go about that. Just curious if I'm missing something there, because for me, the method would be to use environment variables. And with that also comes the question of, what about backend development? Like, what if somebody runs some kind of migration to the database? Like, is it like, I guess, separating that code? Because when it comes to databases, that's where things get a little bit tricky. I don't know how much in backend you work, or how consistent you are there. That is like a huge headache for me to think about. Like, man, if I let people start modifying the database, and if we have a live, let's say we get 2,000 users on this thing, whatever that count is, if one thing goes wrong, in theory you could fix it, but databases can get tricky. Like when something goes wrong there, that's not fun. That means the site goes down, and really you can't just rebuild. Like if it's the front end, you can't just rebuild a component. Like you're having to fix all of that.
I got a really easy answer to that.
Oh, I love that.
They shouldn't run migrations, and nor should you. Not because you shouldn't have migrations, but everything should be automated. There should be no human interaction. I don't have access to my production servers. I don't. Only GitHub does. And that does, I don't even know what my tokens are. If you said, Eddie, I'll pay you £1 million right now, log into your servers, I actually couldn't do it because I don't keep the tokens anywhere. They got generated. I put them into GitHub secrets, and the actions use that to deploy things out. But I've kind of lost them, right? You cannot get them to see them now. So I would definitely have everything automated. No one should be running any actions. And I know we had Sid here earlier, who's massively into DevOps, who actually helped me deploy from GitHub Actions to my Kubernetes cluster in a live stream, which was just epic, really, really good. And it's crazy how I thought it was going to be so hard, but he explained it so well and made it so simple. Literally, I think 6 lines of YAML, and another YAML file of config, just managed to push it all through to live, and how I never have any downtime because it kept a container up while it brought up the new application, new container, and then switched them over immediately. It was epic. It was amazing to see that all, but it's fully automated. So I couldn't do that manually if I tried.
I have a lot to learn there. I'm seeing the answers. This is why it's nice to put it out publicly, because you have people like Joseph Branch, who's always amazing and helping me out. But I post up the concern. and I just start getting all this insight. And usually what I'm doing is I'm sitting with a notepad here.
Nice.
It's empty right now because I just pasted some off, but I'm taking notes. Like I love it because when you're talking about all this, like you're giving me the idea, but it doesn't mean I just know how to implement it. I have to go back and think, how do I do this in my environment? Yeah, and I'll just start adding it in. But cool.
Yeah, it's things you can add in as you go along. And with the automation, it's so good because even if you've got like maintainers on your branch, on your repo, you could say that a release is what triggers the deployment and runs the migrations and does all that sort of stuff. But only certain people have access to do that. And you can then lock things down that way. So someone could raise a deployment pull request, but only you have the access to hit that merge to actually trigger off that deployment, which will run all your tests, make sure it all is all happy, and then deploy it out. Because I never roll back. I only roll forward. It should be so quick to make an improvement, even for my client projects. It should be so quick to make an improvement. I never want to roll back because migrations rolling back is you could lose data, right? Like, so imagine you add a column, people start using it, but then you go, something's not working. Let's roll it back. The migration is going to destroy that column. And you're going to lose that data to roll back that migration. So really it's about always rolling forward. If you can deploy within a few minutes, you can always roll forward and you don't have to go, did I push to that server? Did I push to that one? Is this the right one? Forget it. GitHub Action is just going to go boom, boom, boom. In 1 minute, just deploy everything out completely.
Okay. So we touched on this topic a little bit ago, like more towards the beginning, but having other maintainers to a project, like let's say, for example, right now, I just moved across the country. I'm getting my condo rebuilt and I have to go back to my old place. I'm going to go see family, but I might be out for a week, maybe even 3 at some point. Do you recommend, I know I asked you this, but do you recommend adding more maintainers? Because we kind of went on a side topic there. There's some people here, like I see them in the comment section that I feel like I can trust to maintain it, at least at this small level. Like the project doesn't have anything crazy in it. But basically, should I allow anyone else to make those requests to my master branch to actually completely watch the project?
I would say yes. Having maintainers really helps because they can keep things going, and you might want something done slightly differently, but you could make that improvement later, right? To say if someone, I don't know, writes an SQL query in a way that you don't want, like you want to use they've used a subquery, you don't want to use a join or whatever it is. It's not the end of the world if that goes in. It might not be as performant, etc. But if it goes in, you can make an improvement later on. It's not the end of the world. So like I was saying, I get like 1,200 GitHub notifications a week, but most of those, 90% of them have been taken care of by the community already, even ones that are maintainers and ones that are not. So I still look through them and just check that I'm keeping in the loop, because getting something reviewed is not just about getting improvements, getting feedback from people. It's also about knowledge transfer. So if you make a change and you raise a pull request and one of your maintainers or your community says, hey, Dennis, I'll do that slightly differently. Maybe this is a bit better. You could say, oh, that is better, but I haven't got time to do that now. Merge in, you're happy with what you've done. Please raise an issue for your suggestion. We'll make the improvement later on. And so it's always about little and often and moving that forward. As long as it's not a security risk, as long as it's not anything detrimental, we shouldn't be. I used to be really picky and everything had to be super perfect. And then projects just don't move along. People lose interest and so on. And some people want to make those improvements. Like you could say, hey, I've written this SQL query. I know it's not very performant. I know it's not the best. I've done it. I've put it in so we can get this feature out, but can someone make an improvement? You could raise an issue for that, and someone will make that improvement or make some suggestions on how to improve it. Like, ViViV in the chat just is eagle eyes, just spots everything. Doesn't necessarily always make the pull request, but then helps people to make that pull request. So that's, look, I haven't got time to do it, but I would suggest looking at this documentation and this resource, and I think you could do it with X. And then that other person will then go make that improvement. And so it's about collaboration really, and adding value, and it's not necessarily about actually making the changes yourself or themselves. So I would add a maintainer. If you want to be extra cautious, you could have you've got your master branch. You could then have a develop branch. So the master branch is only for you, and that's what gets deployed out. And then other pull requests can get merged in by your maintainers into the develop branch. But they'll never go out to production until you've reviewed it. You could then raise a pull request from develop to master. Yes, it will contain multiple commits, not just yours. It will contain the communities, but you could just have it once over and make sure you're happy with it. You could even check out that branch locally and just run it, make sure you're happy with it, and so forth. So you could have an extra step.
Okay, so basically you're just giving them permissions to that specific branch or to run that part. I'll have to look into that. That makes sense. Yeah, because I have about 3 people that are very active in. I mean, they I don't know why they're so willing to help. It always blows my mind, but I'm thinking, okay, these people have helped already so much. Why not just put them forward? And I obviously let them know, hey, be very careful. Don't accept anything right now. Like while I'm here, I'll take care of that. But let me figure out how to run this thing, and then we'll try to adjust a little bit. Well, yeah, that's definitely going to be helpful.
It makes sense. Just do. You don't have to like kind of go all guns blazing, right? You could bring one person in, get some feedback, see how that works. You might improve your process, and then bring another person in rather than trying to bring 10 people in one go. Again, with everything, little and often, just like try and like do one step in that direction, and then you'll see kind of what works, what doesn't.
Yeah. So how about the Discord server? Let's switch gears here a little bit, because I started that. Moderators, there was about 10 to 15 people that absolutely stepped up.
Nice.
One thing that was kind of hard for me is because now I feel obligated to be in there all the time. The moderators did a really good job of saying, hey, don't bug Dennis for this. Ask these more publicly. That was amazing to me, because I felt like I had like a security wall over me. Like that was awesome, because as much as people, want to reach out, they get excited. There's no way one person can respond to all of those comments like that. I start feeling like a personal guilt for not being able to do that, but it's just not practical anymore. Like that, it's gotten impossible. But yeah, like I'm assuming you probably have the moderators take care of that. Yeah.
We've got, I mean, your Discord's probably going to grow much further than mine. I think you're at like 400 members. I looked earlier. I'm at almost 2,000, but I'm sure with your 100,000+ people on YouTube, you're going to like soon pass me. But you still have the same problem, even with like 400 or 2,000. You're going to have that problem. You're right. Just too many people, you want to engage with people, but you haven't got the time. You just can't do it. Yeah, my moderators, again, VivIV's in the chat. I remember I had some others. They just do so much. I think I have about 10 or so mods. Maybe 4 or 5 of them are the most active ones. And they do so much. And we have a private channel, and they'll just let me know if I need to get involved in something. They're like, look, I'm on the fence about this person. They're being a bit rude or aggressive. Should we ban them or not? But I trust them. So I just say, look, do what you think. If you think they're not part, they haven't got the community and they don't want to add value, then just do it. I'll back you up with whatever you need. But I think they're all quite cautious, which I think is really sweet and really nice. They don't want to do anything like so drastic but touch wood, we've only had like out of 2,000 people. I think we had like 2 people that we banned. That was it. But yeah, and it's really good
to find your Discord server too. I want to show that if you don't mind sharing it publicly. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, okay.
I think we should post it, but just wanted to show that because I need to check it out. I can probably, I guess if you can open it up, I can use yours as an example because clearly you know how to run things, and
I've been learning, to be honest.
Can you post this so I can join it, or is that open to the public?
Yeah, no, it's open to the public. Let me. I won't be able to post it on YouTube because it will.
It'll flag it.
It will kick it out, but I could send it to you on Discord, I think, as well. Let me see.
Okay, so
I'll send it to you after. Oh no, I'll send it to you now. I've got it here. Here we go.
Yeah, I can definitely use some tips from you. And I've left the moderators up to that. Like I set some standards. They went a little bit crazy in the beginning and they added bots for everything. And I was like, okay, like I can see the point. Let's slow down a little bit. Let's keep it simplistic, but I give them the leeway to add in their music bots and their, whatever else they feel like should be added there.
Yeah.
I love it though.
Yeah. Bots are really, really useful. I'm going to try and put this in the chat, but I think it's going to boot me out. It's going to not even to see it, I don't think.
What if I added it? It wouldn't, like, it allows the moderator to do it, right?
Allow moderators or yourself to do it.
Yeah, send it to me then, and I'll just I'll add it.
Okay, let me find you. I don't think I have Can I send you on Twitter? I have an open chat.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
While I'm trying to find you on Discord. Okay, I'll send it to you now. Here we go.
And we'll get to questions here in like 2-3 minutes. Here, let's just finish this part up.
Awesome. So so we have various bots. Let me scroll down to the bots. Dennis, if you want to join, I can add you as a community partner. So then people can go. You've got Sid there, as you can see. We've got Siddharth and other community partners. I know some people in their Discords are like, you can't talk about any other community in here. It's all about that one community. I'm the opposite, right? If you add value to our community, you can share your GitHub links. You can share. But if people come in just to dump their links and leave, then we don't allow that. Yeah. But we have various bots as well. I highly recommend getting some bots. We've just categorized things. We're making improvements and tweaks all the time. I'm learning I'm learning Discord as well as we go along. It's pretty awesome. I've actually stopped using Slack and trying to move everything over to Discord. Like we have a hackathon going on this week with MLH, and we have a channel down here which is on that, so people can see what's going on and talk about the hackathon. We won the last MLH hackathon in January, which was awesome. Everyone got loads of free swag. But I have joined yours as well, so let's have a look at yours. So yeah, you've got your mods at the top, which is awesome. You've got loads of bots. Wow, you got more than me.
They went crazy with it.
That's
I'll have to have a moderators meeting and see if we need all of them. I'm not sure. I told them this when I started. I let people know, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I just know we need a place to communicate. For now, I do not run Discord. I have a couple of communities that I'm a part of, specifically the one that you and I are a part of, the secret one, I guess. But other than that, like I know nothing about it, so I give them the leeway to do it, and I'll just try to fix up what I can.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you could even write your own custom bots. I mean, Vive writes his own custom bots. I write mine as well for our so we have like an Eddie Hub bot, Eddie bot. Here we go. Not Eddie Hub, Eddie bot. Here we go. Then you can do whatever you kind of want in JavaScript or Python and so forth, and you can customize it even further. But yeah, I think just creating a safe space for people, because some people do come in and do try to kind of agitate people to get a kind of reaction from people, and those are the people your mods have to be kind of on and just not allow it. Because it's really interesting how whenever we got like one bad apple, it kind of Discord went quiet for a couple of days until people kind of got the courage.
Yeah, I know what that's like for sure. I've seen that.
Yeah. So that's not so good, but I'm sure you've got some good mods, and they seem to have customized your Discord load, which I think is awesome. It's nice to have it customized. So that's great.
Okay, well, I see. Okay, say it again. Vive, right?
Yeah, Vive. Yeah,
Vive. Okay, I was watching one of your streams and I saw them comment. I just added them as a moderator. I see they're responding about somebody needing to be booted. I don't know. I trust him. If you trust him, I just added him.
Yeah, Vive definitely. Vive is one of our mods. So that's awesome.
I just added them. Yeah. Okay, so I want to go into some Q&A then. Anybody part of my Discord group want to say hi or just ask a question? Go ahead and jump out here. I know we've been talking, so maybe give you guys some time to come up with those. I'll try going through some old questions, but let's try to keep it related to what we're discussing in open source, maybe the Discord group.
I love it that you're doing open source though now. It makes me so happy. And then you've got a Discord community as well. It means we get to geek out more, because I only geek out on open source stuff. So I'm sure some of my community members will geek out on your projects and vice versa. And I just love that kind of, cross collaboration, because everyone's always learning more. So I think that's great. And you said yours is in Python, and I think Vive does Python as well. So
perfect.
They'll definitely get involved in that as well. So
nice. I just remembered one of your tips here. So anybody in my Discord group, I guess anywhere, please use your real name, your real username, I guess. Midu right here, or Midu, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's a young high school student, I think. He had a different username. I want to know who you are when I'm interacting with you. Try to keep your profile picture consistent through all of your content here. Like this is Midu's profile picture here. And it's also the one on Discord. So now I recognize it. But if you change up your name, like Eddie, you talk about people reaching out to you, and you might be talking to them on one platform, and then, on one platform, they're John 12, and on the next, they are, Sexy Chicken 2. I don't know where the hell it is. You don't know who you're talking to. The people have these usernames that are like it. So it helps, I think, when you're trying to get a job to your GitHub profile. I told Midu to try to put your face on there, try to keep it consistent, because even though you're a high school student, you might as well start building that up and try to, not to use something so custom to you, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make it easier for people to discover your GitHub, your LinkedIn, and join the dots. Like if you have a great conversation or great collaboration with them on GitHub, they might come across you on LinkedIn. If they go, oh, that person's great. Yes. Let me connect with them and offer them a job or whatever it is. Make it easier for people. Don't make it hard.
Yeah. Yeah, because I try to look up a lot of these people too, right? Like if their name is custom like this, I have no idea who I'm even talking to, and it helps to understand that person. I guess I'll try to find him on Twitter. Maybe I can connect with him there. Okay, so competitive programming. I see somebody asking that. I've never done that, Eddie. I think you've mentioned that, right? You were just talking about these competitions here.
Yeah, so competitive programming, I don't think that involves hackathons so much, unless people correct me if I'm wrong, because everyone's perception of this is very, very different. I see people talking about competitive programming when you go for an interview and you trying to, do something like code wars and all the rest. I don't like those things so much. I've done it a few times. I just find it's not very realistic, as in it's not something you do in a job. Whereas that's why actually I like the hackathon that MLH do. They do loads of them every weekend, but the specific one they call like local hack day, share and build. And the reason is it's collaborative. So you get into guilds. So our guild is like, I don't know, 500 people, and they're all collaborating together to get points. Some people might just do a hello world in a new language, but that gets them 1 point for the guild. Someone else might build a Discord bot and that gets them 10 points, but it all adds up. And then you win as a community and you get swag as a community rather than a team of 3 and 4, which has its benefits as well. I'm not saying not to do that, but I think never go to a hackathon or do anything by yourself. 1, you're going to learn slower. 2, it's not realistic. You're never going to go to a company and just work. Unless it's like a small startup, you're never really going to work by yourself. You need to work with other people. And 3, if you go to a hackathon, you've got a team of say 4, for example, make sure half the team are different disciplines to you, either different language or not coders if you're a coder. It's really important. The hackathons I've won, so before COVID, I won 6 hackathons in a row, which is unheard of for the 10 years before that I used to do it. And the only difference is half our team weren't coders because they thought about the presentation, they thought about the user, they thought about so many different things that we didn't think of. Before those 6 hackathons that I won, the one before I had 4 coders, and we had a plan. We were going to build the best thing ever. And we did. Technically, it was awesome. It was automated, had CI, had CD, it was deployed, had versioning, like it was epic, but we lost. And they said, technically engineering wise, it's really good. But as a user perspective, it's meh, and the presentation was meh, and we couldn't really understand it. We're not techies. It sounds great and wonderful, but it's not so great. So you need that mix of people.
Makes perfect sense. It's just like in business too. If you have 2 people that are good with the product, but no one has the business side of things taken care of, yeah, it makes sense. If you're putting a bunch of coders in, they're not going to think of all the other parts. Makes sense. So somebody was asking, this is probably a quick one here. You have to have a big project before you begin a Discord. And I personally don't think so. I mean, I'm not the Discord expert, but if you want to start a small project, there's constantly people. In fact, here's a perfect example. There's constantly people that are just getting started, that just want somebody to talk to and somebody to maybe work on this lowest level of applications. Let's say you're trying to start up a Hello World application or a to-do app. Find somebody that's completely new in my YouTube comment section that's also just getting started, create a Discord server and invite complete beginners and work on tiny little applications that way. That's my opinion on that. I don't think it has to be anything big. Now you're connecting with people that are in the same phase, and hopefully eventually you learn from somebody that's more experienced, but it's nice to connect. So I don't think so.
I think that's spot on. That's awesome.
So Joseph is asking me directly, do you feel open source can be a way to replace income or replace a regular 40-hour work week? So I'm asking Eddie open source questions. So that should be directed towards Eddie. Eddie, if you want to answer that, what do you think?
Absolutely. But remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint, like with our open source projects, like with our careers and our journeys. But yes, I mean, I get paid to do open source. I get paid to do what I love, and it is absolutely possible. Like if you want to get a job at a company, you want to get paid to work on their open source projects, go find their open source projects like Twilio and loads of other places. They all have loads of open source projects, even Netflix, etc. Go contribute to their open source projects, their documentation. And I've heard so many people get jobs at these places because when they want somebody to work on their project, they're going to go. I mean, can I share my screen one more time?
Absolutely.
So if we go to, I've got Dennis's project open, so I'm just going to pick this. So one thing I quickly wanted to say is also, Dennis, with your project, a good thing to check is if you go to the Insights tab along the top, I think Vive mentioned this in one of the issues, and then go to Community. These are the suggestions from GitHub to make your project more inclusive. So code of conduct, you can hit propose, it'll give you some templates, contributors file, license, etc. License is really important because if you don't put a license, it is not open source and it is not proprietary. It's in this kind of middle ground. So definitely add a license. But what you can also do is in the Insights, you can go to contributors. So what I do for my clients, be it High Street Bank in the UK, be it, I don't know, a company in the US, whatever it is, what I say to people, if you want to hire someone who hits the ground running, who has the same, attitude and collaborates with your team really well, go to Insights, go to contributors, and look who the main contributors are. Yes, the first 2 people, for example, might be employees of that company. But then after that, you want to go to the next bill, contact those people. Why would you not want to hire people who are already contributing to your project? And my clients will go, oh, wow, we don't have to use like recruiters. We don't have to search around for months. No. And actually, we've hired so many amazing people. They literally come in like a week later and the first day, just get on because they've been doing it already. And documentation is enough. Don't think you have to contribute the next biggest feature. Remember, it's just about adding value. So yes, you can earn from open source. There's GitHub sponsorship that Dennis mentioned. There are so many other things you can do, but you got to think long term. I think marathon. Don't try and think you're going to do it all in one weekend.
So I want to add to what you said. If you scroll up, there's one contributor here. Can you scroll up a second?
Yeah.
There's I forgot what his actual name was. Again, this is why you want to put on your real name, not Mr. SP Shuvo. I have his real name, so I found it, but he is somebody he's the person that built out that UI kit. When it comes time to hiring, if I can get funding for this project, whether that's from crowdsourcing, the project, let's say, goes big, who do you think I'm going to in this case right here to hire? Somebody that knows my system, somebody that's contributed. I worked with them, and I feel like it's weird because I don't even give him a task. I just mention a need, and he's solving it immediately. That's the kind of employee I would love to have. So absolutely, I'm going there. So what you mentioned, if you're contributing, you're putting yourself out there, you're building yourself up a good opportunity for a job. So yeah, that he's a perfect example. I love it. So is it Sharira?
Sharira, I think. But the other thing to do is, Dennis already knows that this person contributes to his project and does a really good job. But then Dennis can also go have a look and see what else are they contributing to. Okay, so they've done loads here. What else are they doing? Let's go further back, and they can kind of see what they've been up to. And it looks like they're mostly contributing to yours. So you know that they're focused on yours and they've contributed to one here, for example, and so forth. So yeah, with GitHub, you do have this history. So it is your portfolio. This is better than any resume, any CV, any portfolio is your GitHub account. But the one thing, they don't have a customized GitHub profile. So they're losing that kind of real estate of adding in more about themselves, because yes, down the left you can add a link to your website, your location, all the rest. But if you can add more, maybe like your I don't know what you're learning at the moment, technologies that you use, you can make it easier for people to hire you. People want to give you money, like let them give you money.
I'm assuming you talk about this in those videos, right? In that video you have with Traversy Media, Free Code Camp. I would recommend people check those out. I'll probably link those up in the video description. Go check out Eddie's stuff on this. I'm assuming you talk. I need to watch it, by the way. I've never sat down and watched a tutorial on GitHub. This is why I know so little, because for me, it was like, I need to push my project live. What do? Use GitHub. Okay, how do I push a project on GitHub? Like I just Googled it and did it. I need to sit down and take at least a couple hours and study it, watch these videos. And I feel like I'm just going to, my knowledge will just shoot through the roof. And it's already went up like crazy just from having this conversation with you. And hopefully others are benefiting too.
I have loads of like shorter videos on my YouTube that are specific as well.
Yes, and on your channel.
Ones, yeah. I've just started a second channel where it's just only YouTube shorts. So they're 1 minute or less tips. Started like 2 weeks ago. And every couple of days I'm trying to put out like 1 minute like vertical videos on like tips on things. So to give an example, a new tip that's just come out. Let me just see if I go to your project and I go back again. Here we go. And I go back to your page. A new thing that's come out recently, you'll notice there's an icon here on the left on the README that never used to be there. And if I scroll down, it should stick at the top. And if you click it, it's actually your table of contents, which has recently come out like a few days ago. So as you scroll down, it also changes. It's all in sync. So it just people should write like good documentation. So therefore, when these features come out, it's easier for people to navigate around and use them and so forth. Cool.
And this is where you got to check out Eddie's channel here. So go check that out. The GitHub Master. So I just want to make sure people can find you.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. So, all right. We have some more questions now. So we just went through Joseph's. Let's see. How do you get people to contribute to your project smaller, no matter how small? I think it's kind of like what I mentioned, Eddie. If you have any tips here, just get involved with people, try to get active, comment on their projects, whether they're on Twitter, on GitHub. I'd imagine if somebody if somebody contributes to my project, I usually go and follow them. I want to know who they are. Yeah. So I'll usually go and respond. So yeah, if you have any other tips for that.
I think that's the best solution. And it's also how easy it is for people to understand your project. Like when they go to your README, do they understand what their project's about? Do they understand how to set it up? Like if anything's too hard, they're going to lose interest. And you
Good
might think
point.
it's easy for you, but I get other people in the community say, look, I've just started this new repo. Can you please let me know what's bad about it? I think it's in a good state, and then people say, well, where do I get this token from? You say to run it, I need a token from Firebase, for example. And I was like, well, you go to Firebase and you get a token. I said, yeah, but I've never used Firebase before. So to get the tokens really hard for me. Can you put a link to the documentation or can you abbreviate it? So yeah, just make it as easy as possible for people to contribute to your project. And that only gets better as people use it. So don't spam your link everywhere. That doesn't work. I find when people just keep spamming links, I just start ignoring it. Even if the project's good, it's just kind of, you just kind of don't pay attention to it. So I think make it, as Dennis said, those are great tips. Follow other people, get involved in their projects and so forth, but make your project easy for people to get involved. And your repo could be tiny in that it could just be, I've seen repos with like 15,000 stars and I don't know, 5,000 contributors. And it's just one markdown file called readme with a list of information of useful resources, whatever it is. Just start small and you never know where it goes.
Yeah. Well, GitHub also, I mean, they have a search engine too. So if you're using the right keywords, if you're building projects that people are looking up, like for example, right now, if you look up Django e-commerce website, like that's a popular topic that, there's, I don't know how many projects they are holding that name right now, but if you build something that's good, you will rank for that keyword and people do search things up on GitHub too.
Exactly. It's a very powerful search engine. And when people start starring your project, GitHub will recommend it, a bit like kind of YouTube will recommend it to other people. You can then start trending. I've seen projects explode because they appeared on the trending page on GitHub, and then those people start following it and all the rest. So yeah, just get started little and often.
So I'm not sure how on topic this was, but I want to get to it just because he's such a regular contributor. So good knowledge, it's valuable but more than I think sorry, I'm trying to paraphrase it here.
Sure.
So he's asking about moving a project to production. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll need you more when the project will move to production. Right.
Oh,
okay.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, once that's set up, absolutely. Like I'll let everyone take care of the front end part, little things like the API and so on, and building the thing out. But when it comes to production, I already have a plan in place. And that's something that I would imagine I'm going to take care of unless somebody like specializes in that area. Because that's not even like a GitHub thing. Like that's setting up my AWS S3 buckets, getting that Heroku server set up. Yeah.
What I would also recommend for that actually is what I like to do hello world across my full stack. So what I would recommend, I know you started work on this already, but say you hadn't, I'd say get like, I don't know, a version number from an environment variable in your Django project coming out through an API, like, I don't know, status endpoint or whatever you want to call it, and just return the version number that comes from a file or an environment variable. And then I'd get the UI to read that and display it on the page. Effectively kind of like hello world all the way through, but actually maybe reading from the database, maybe reading something from the database. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would get that deployed to production because then I know that's now deployed to production and working. Yes, later on, you're going to have to maybe add some tweaks to that, but you've kind of got it going end to end in your stack and end to end in your pipelines. You kind of got that kind of cross. That's what I personally recommend. And then once you've got that, as you add more features, most of them will just go out as you allow them to, automated. But then if you need, say, I don't know, you're adding a caching server in or something like that. I'm trying to think of an example. Then yes, you might have to modify your deployment slightly, but that way it's you're making a slight tweak to it rather than you're trying to do it all in one go. So because if you waited like 2 months into your project, now you might have caching server, database, you've got Python backend, you've got React front end, and you might have some other things. And now when you're doing deployment, you're like, right, I've got to spend like a week doing the deployment. Whereas if you did it from day one, you're kind of doing it again in increments and little stages. Again, you got lower fidelity.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So it's like anytime I put out a deployment video or we finish up a project, like when you deploy it, because that's usually the last step, right? We just launch the project. There's all these. Yeah, see, well, I mean, I guess I can't start a tutorial with just deployment if I'm teaching people how to. I mean, I could, but yeah, like if it's like an e-commerce website, there's more dependencies. Like there's libraries that I might need in the project. So deploying a small, like a static website, let's say if I'm just doing like a portfolio website that doesn't really have that much, that's going to take 2 seconds to deploy. But then those same people will watch a deployment video of me deploying a static website, not static, but a very simple website.
Sure.
And then they'll try to deploy a large scale application and they'll say, well, I'm getting all these errors now. Heroku's telling me I'm missing dependencies. That's because that's specific to your project. They'll tell me there's an error in my video. It's not the video. It's the fact that there's a dependency. So I absolutely get what you're saying. You deploy it, and then once you're making those changes, you just start pushing them. And I probably will start doing that once I start getting that template up, like what we saw here for the Mumble demo. I'll probably just add this because right now this is all just using a JSON file. It's not the real website, but I might as well start hosting this.
Yeah, absolutely. You should get Sid and me. We'll automate this through GitHub Actions, so you never have to deploy it manually again, and all your deployment will be in like config files in your repo. So if you want to make a change, you can make a change. You can raise a pull request and say, "Hey, Sid, Eddie, I've made this change. Is it going to make sense? Yeah, it looks good. Let's try it." And it can then deploy it all out, all via. So your whole infrastructure is code. You don't have to like worry about. Like I've got a Kubernetes cluster on Docker Ocean that costs me like $10 a month. And from that, I can deploy like a database. I can deploy my backend node. I can deploy my front end. It's all just going out. I can scale it up. Like I could have 2 containers running for the front end, and I might have 5 containers for the back end. And just by changing a config, it just scales up and down as I need to. It's awesome.
So that actually brings up a question on my end, I guess, or I have a question now. So I had somebody that person that was contributing to who built out that UI kit. Originally, they built it out in SAS, right? Okay. That's how you pronounce it? Because there's SCSS and there's SAS, which I don't work with. I'm not a front end developer. I mean, I know how to work with it, but it's not my skill set. How do you deal with your contributors who are trying to use technologies that may be better, but aren't something that you're familiar with as the maintainer? Because I see no reason to it. Like I've used it one time. I went in for an interview and they happened to use that and they wanted me to know it. So I learned it in an evening, but that was like a 1.5 years ago. It's not what I'm comfortable with. How do you say no to a better feature that isn't what you're comfortable with? Or do you say no? Like, do you just, because if I'm trying to make changes and they're working in something that I'm not familiar with, I can't do it. If let's say you and Sid helped me out with what you guys are talking about in the DevOps side, if I'm not familiar with that, what if I run into an issue? I don't want to be bugging you guys. I need to make sure that I can maintain the project as a project maintainer. So do I say no to good features or not?
That's a really good question. And I don't know if I have like the right answer. That's a really good question. I would say yes. So say, for example, if you were building a plane, let's take a plane as an example. It's quite a drastic example, but there's a reason for my madness. And you were this Uber engineer, like you knew how to build a really good plane that looked good, that was efficient and stuff, but you would get an expert who does the aerodynamics, the expert who does like the tannoy system, who does, I don't know, the interior design, because although you might have an appreciation for those, you can't be, with our projects and technology now, it moves so fast. I don't think we can be an expert at everything. I'm not claiming to be an expert on front end, back end, full stack, to combine those two together, DevOps, but I feel I know enough to ask for what I want, maybe to get started and then get someone else to review it. Because what I did so I Dockerized my Node app. And then again, I think it's a few lines of Docker file, nothing like massive. And then I built the Kubernetes cluster in DigitalOcean with a couple of clicks to say, like, create a new cluster. It created it all. But then joining those together, I couldn't quite figure out how to make it work. And it was really surprisingly how I ran through it with Sid before the live stream on a call. And I can't remember, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. My world was like, wow, the power of this. And for Sid, it was really easy, like really simple. It was like me creating that pull request on your repo earlier. Like for me, creating that pull request on your repo, I do it 100 times a week. So it's straightforward for me. But I appreciate for other people, it's quite hard. And so when Sid was helping me deploy my stuff, connect my Docker, the GitHub container registry with my Docker file to my Kubernetes cluster, for me, that was like really hard. But having gone through that, I now know that. I don't know everything about it, but I know how to do that for one of my containers. So then I can do it for a second container, third container. But I appreciate I'm going to have to reach out to Sid or other people in the community. It sounds like your community is huge. You will know people who can, help you and give you advice. And I think that's just a great way for us to learn fast. For me to learn what Sid did would have taken me like, I don't know, a whole weekend or a week. But he showed me in 40 minutes. And so I think we all like to help each other.
Yeah, I like the approach of learning from it. Like I absolutely agree with that. I'll have to learn that really quick, but because it wasn't my focus, here's the conclusion that I came with was, let's just use CSS. when we can get to a point where we have enough SaaS developers, when I feel like I can get the support and I can go hands off on the front end and focus on different parts, then I'm okay with it. And also at the same time, if I can find regular project maintainers that I know I can trust on, because I don't know who's going to be there next week. Let's say this person implements it, then they're gone. What do I do? I can't go out and ask for support because this is open source. I'm not actually hiring anybody at this point. So that's where I kind of just came to the conclusion of let's hold back and then we'll see what we can do later.
I think that's a good choice as well. Again, it's a difficult one. Every situation is slightly different. I have had that happen once where someone came in and said, well, we're going to use this framework, we're going to show you how to do it. They set it up, it disappeared. No one else knew how to do it.
Yeah.
So I do agree with that. And that is a conscious decision of you saying, actually, we're going to keep it simpler for people because we want it easier for other people and that other people can contribute. So
yeah, and that was it too. Like I was also considering the skill level of the developers joining too. Like there's some people that are just getting started with Django. They're getting familiar with front end stuff. And I don't want to throw SaaS at them. I want to say, okay, you learn CSS, you can contribute at this point, and then we'll see kind of where we scale to. But I'm trying to also keep it lower level for everybody. Okay, so yeah, I had that question. I want to throw that in. I will pull up another one.
Sure.
I'm not sure what angle you're coming with at this question, but would you consider collaborating with a Django developer from Ghana, Africa? If you look at the Discord server, I'm from the US. I think there's like 5 people maybe from the US. I don't know what the number is, but they're all over the world. I mean, everybody's contributing. That's not even it's open for everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, clarify that. Okay, let's see. How can we go about committing PRs using the Git CLI? Yeah, that's something that you'll have to learn. That's the way I'm doing it. What Eddie just did in that example, I've done it that way, but that's not the way that I stay consistently with it because I'm usually working on a local branch. So if you create a project, you can it usually starts off, like if you create a Git project, it starts off with the basic commands of how to connect to a repo, how to clone one, and then how to actually push commits there too. But you will obviously need a little bit more than that.
And we can show that if we need to, but yeah, it's when you want to do more, you have to use the Git CLI, and there's probably only 6 commands that you really need. The clone, the push and pull for your repo. If it's an original repo or a fork, it will always be on origin, and that's what you clone. That's the remote. It's called origin. But if you want to keep your fork up to date with the original repo, it's known as upstream. You need to add an upstream as well, and then you usually fetch from the upstream. But I've got a video on this. I can share a link afterwards. Do reach out to me. I've even got a 1-minute video on my second channel.
Let's do it, and we'll link it up. Yeah. I'll link that up. So hopefully that's to your channel too. So that way people can find you through that video too. Okay, let's see. Joseph's asking about DevOps, I think. So where does your DevOps knowledge come from? Probably from Sid, right?
Recently from Sid, yeah, the awesome, exciting stuff with kind of Kubernetes and so on from Sid. Being 15 years as a full stack developer, I've been doing DevOps like almost from like near the beginning, just needing to deploy things. There was no DevOps, obviously the name at the time. And just as I got on bigger projects, bigger clients, you collaborate with more people and you just kind of learn all these different things. So it's something that I've always kind of done. And sometimes I do it more, sometimes I do it less. And it's always changing. And I think collaborating with people in the community, you're going to learn from each other. And so DevOps is not my specialty, but I can do enough to get my projects deployed or my clients' projects. But I know who to ask or where to look. Books, I used to use books a lot, but they go out of date really quickly. YouTube videos are quite good, but again, check that they're quite recent. I think after 6 months, a year. Don't worry about, YouTube videos probably out of date. Same with blog posts. Books are probably out of date as soon as you bought it. Just see there's loads of different ways to do the same thing as well, which makes it harder. And even if you do Kubernetes, like there's like so many different ways to do it. Sid was showing me some stuff. I was thinking, he goes, you can use Ingress, or you can do it this, or you can do it natively within. I was like, oh my God, it's so much. So just get started. One thing probably to start doing, whatever you're using, Heroku, DigitalOcean, AWS, use a GitHub Action to do that for you. One, because there's already GitHub Actions to do it for you. So you can just like put your tokens in and just takes care of it all for you. Or if you want to do it manually yourself, the commands you run locally, do it on a YAML config. And therefore you'll just get into that more, I think. Just practice it. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tommy. Really
Tommy here. Okay, so I see a couple other questions. I see some that are unrelated, some that I feel like we've answered. Would you want to do a clone real quick for that question? Sam the Fam
Yeah,
asked about that. I figured
sure.
we might as well do that real quick. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let me pull up your screen. So Eddie's going to clone it and he's going to use a CLI. So you have to download the Git CLI. Just go ahead and look that up. And once you get that installed, it'll give you access to the commands.
Yep. So what I will do, I'll go to my directory where I want this to go. So I've got a repos directory, and all I'm going to do. So this is
you're on a Mac, right?
I'm on a Mac. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Dennis's repo. So I don't want to. I can't commit to this. So I want to clone my fork. So what I can do, I can click on this. It should take me to my fork. There we go.
So this earlier on, you forked it, which is a copy of my project. Okay, so you're working off of your own version, not mine. Which it says right there, forked from the Ivanov 11 / mumble.
Exactly. So you've got that here. But one thing that we'll notice, which is really, really good, which I've just noticed. Let me bring up yours again. I've lost it now. What do I do? I meant to click on the repo, not your name. So if you look, the last commit in the repo was 1 hour ago by me. But if you look in my fork, the last commit was 4 hours ago by Dennis. So my fork is out of date. So this will probably be the commit previously, because I got 24 and in the original it's 25. So I'm actually 1 out of date. So before you make any changes to your repo, to the forked repo, make sure it's up to date. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And that's the hardest part. And it's not hard when you know how.
Up to date, just to clarify that means that I made a change or I made another pull request that is not up to date with yours. So let's say you forked my projects, you forked the project, I made a change, so they're just they're not in sync. So just to clarify that.
Yes, let me see if I can draw something on my screen. I don't know if I can. Will this work? Yes. So you've got. Let me see if I can think about this. You've got the original repo, which is here, which is Dennis's repo. I took a fork of that, so this is my repo now, but I made changes in a branch, and it went up to Dennis's. And he emerged it and accepted it. But I haven't brought my change back down. And I know what everyone's thinking. I could have made the change in the default branch. Therefore, mine would have the commit, and so would Dennis's. But what you'll notice is mine would have had 2 commits, and Dennis's would have 1. Because when Dennis accepted my pull request, he squashed the commit. That's why you must never commit to the default branch. You, again, if this is my repo, you want to go up in another branch, whatever you call it, and then you want to bring the changes down from the original repo in the default branch. So never. So I'm going to get my changes that I made, but I'm not going to get them in the default branch from the branch that I made. Does that make? I explained that really badly, I think.
No, I mean I'm following, but I guess,
okay, cool.
I guess once they see it, they'll understand. There's a lot of diagrams, so I don't think you have to reinvent the wheel. People can look that up.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, just look up like Git flow or something like that. Git branch flow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because that made sense to me.
Cool. So if I go to my patch 1 branch, which is where I made my changes, it will show 26, and Dennis's will show 25 because he squashed the commit. And so this branch now could be destroyed, and that's the good thing to do. Once your pull request is merged, delete that branch. So I want to go back to the default branch, and I don't have that change. If you look in the README, there's no extra Discord link there. So what I'm going to show you to do is what you do. So I want to fork. Sorry, not fork. I want to copy. I want to clone my fork, and I want to pull down the changes first, and then we can make some more changes if we want. So I want to clone the repo, and remember, it's my repo. If you look at it, it's Eddie, and then it's mumble. So I'm going to clone that. It's going to ask me for a password because I use SSH keys. I just typed my password in wrong.
So that's just a project URL, right? Oops. Usually you just want to get that by going to the project for anybody that's completely new there.
Yeah, it will be from here. So you click on code and you can choose HTTPS or you can choose SSH. I always recommend SSH. So now I've got the project. Next thing I want to do is go into the project. So let me just clear my screen. So what I also want to show people is I talked about remotes earlier and it probably didn't make much sense. If I do remote -v, this will show me where my local Git is connected to in the cloud. It could be Bitbucket, it could be GitLab, it could be GitHub. This is where it's connected to. So when I push and pull, by default, it's going to go to my forked version, not to the original repo. So now if I try to pull down the changes or fetch the changes, I'm not going to get anything new because I've just cloned it and I've still only got 24 commits in here. I need to bring down the original repo, which is called the upstream, and then update my fork. So let me show you how to do that. So what I do next is I need to add Dennis's fork to my Git repo locally. So I'm going to go to Dennis's repo. I'm going to hit on code and I'm going to copy his repo URL. But I'm not going to clone it this time. I'm going to go git remote add, and the original repo is always called upstream. So origin is either the original repo under your account or your fork under your account. So origin should be your account always, no matter what it is. And upstream will be the original repo. And you can have more. You can have deploy. People deploy via Git. So you could add deploy. You could add, I don't know, DigitalOcean. You could add Heroku. You could add all sorts of things. But for the fork, you add upstream. And then I'm going to paste in the original link of Dennis's repo. So if you look now, it's dennis's.mumble.git. I'm going to add that. Nothing's changed. If I do a git remote -v again, it's going to show me I've got two. So I've got origin and I've got upstream. So now I want to fetch changes from the original repo. So what I'm going to do, and just to clarify, everyone, a pull is a fetch and a merge. So you can do it in one step, but I recommend doing it in two, just in case you get conflicts or something like that.
I had a question. Sorry, I had my mic off.
Yeah.
You did that in the main branch though, right? Like you didn't check out a new branch at this point?
No, so the remote is for the entire repo. It's not branch specific.
Gotcha. Because I usually, I'm going to follow your methods, but typically I would check out a new branch, clone the project branch, and then merge it. So I did it a little bit differently. So this is actually interesting for me to watch.
Sure. Yeah. So because the default branch, in this case, master, I never want to commit to it. I'd always commit to a branch. So you're absolutely correct. But because I'm going to pull down the new changes in your repo, I want to bring the changes down into the default branch because I'll never make any changes to the default branch myself. So if I did a git log, my commit isn't here. In a minute, we will get my commit here, but my commit in the default branch will never come from my repo. It will come from your repo, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because that's why people end up with lots of weird conflicts. Is because if I merged in, so if I do a git branch, we need a -a. So I do a git branch, my patch one is here. So I could merge it into my master, but it will have two commits. And in your repo, you only have one. So we'll get all these weird conflicts on the lines that I changed, but they'll be the same line. It will say, well, this line has changed and this line has changed, and they're kind of the same because you squash the commit. So we'll have different histories. So it's important to keep the default branch aligned with the original repo. So no one ever commits the default branch. Even if it's your project, to create a PR, you need to be in a branch anyway. So I'm going to go git fetch. I'm trying to remember this now. Upstream. I think that's just it. It's upstream. I think that's it. God, I can't remember now. Let me see if that works. So that now, that's now brought down another branch that I didn't have, and it also brought down some changes. But if I do a git log, it still won't be there because although I have it locally, it's not in my working directory. So next I want to do, I'm going to have to check the chat. I'm sure ViViV or someone's going to tell me what it is. But git merge, I want to merge upstream master, I think is the command. I always forget the path. Let me see. Yes. So now you can see it's fast forwarded. And if I do git log, you will see one commit from me, not two, because I brought down my squash commit that you did when you merged it in, but I brought it down via your repo. So if I want to make more changes to your repo, I would definitely do that in a branch. Don't do it in this. So for example, if we look at GitHub and if I hit refresh, that's your project. If I hit refresh, you'll see it still says 24 because now I have got changes locally. My local origin, not upstream, so origin, my one is ahead by one commit. So I can then go git push origin master, and then it will update my GitHub.
So that's taking your local code, all the changes you made. Let's say if you worked on the project, you built out, like let's say a header in your application, you would do git add the changes, commit, push, and then all of a sudden that's all updated.
Yeah, and I can show that in a second as well if you want. So if I refresh my one, you'll see it go from 24 to 25. I now have my commit in there, but it came down from your repo. So if I want to make a change, let me clear this, make it a bit simpler. If I want to make a change, I would check out to a new branch, and I would call this, I don't know, you come up with a better name, but that's just an example. Then I would then, so now I'm in a test branch, and now I can make changes. So if we open the README, and say if I wanted to, I don't know, make a change. Let me see. Okay, let me make a formatting change. You don't have to accept this. You can reject.
Doing that straight from the command prompt. Wow, you're brave.
So let's say, for example, I want to make this bold, but not the link bold, for example. So I'm just going to change that ever so slightly. And again, you don't have to accept this if you don't want to. I'm going to remove the markdown on those sides, and there. So therefore, I've made those changes. And so now if I do a status, it shows me that I've modified the README. So I want to do a commit. Oops. And there's 2 ways you can do this. Well, actually, there's like 5 ways, but let me just keep it simple. So the M, if people have seen this before, the M, I don't want to bore people too much, but the M is on the right. There's a missing column here on the left. The left means it's staged, and I haven't staged it. So you can do commits in 2 ways. You can try, if you've got loads of different file changes and you only want to commit some of them, you can stage them and then do it that way. But as I've only got, 1 change, I don't have to worry about that. I'll do it again. Docs, improved formatting. I haven't got an issue number, so I want to be really bad about that. And at the end, if you don't specify a path or a file, it will commit whatever's staged. But I have nothing staged, so I'm just going to go readme and specify that. That's now committed. So if I do a git status, all is good. And so I want to push that up. So I do git push origin because I'm pushing to my repo, and I want to push the test branch to my repo. Up. That has now gone up. And so if I go to GitHub, already GitHub said, hey, there's a new branch. Do you want to create a pull request? Okay, let me click it, create a pull request. It already knows to put it to the original, the upstream repo, which is Dennis's, from my test branch. And just say, you do. We'll hit create. And now that's done. And so if I switch back to my default branch, or to the repo's default branch, which is master, and I do git log, that change isn't there. And that's because I don't want the change in my repo until it has been accepted in the upstream branch. That is really important. That will save people so much time. So whatever change you're doing, do it in a branch. And one last tip on that, because I've been talking for too long. If you want to make a new feature, say this pull request is open, Dennis is not going to review it until tomorrow, different time zones, etc. I want to create a new change, a new PR, second PR. Make sure you branch from the default branch and don't branch from your previous branch, because it will contain the changes. So if I created a second pull request with more changes and Dennis goes to review it, it will contain all the stuff from the first pull request. It looks really confusing unless your second pull request really needs the original changes. But then I won't get into that now, but there are ways to do that, make it better for the maintainer and all the rest. I can do that later on. And we've got Stephen say hi, YouTube. Hi, Stephen.
I keep muting my mic here.
Oh, sorry. Were you talking? I talk too much.
No, I muted my mic and then I started talking and realized. I was saying that's a really good tip, and I'm sure a lot of people are. I mean, it's something that's going to be the case where you run into that, where you make a pull request and then you want to make another change. So that's something to consider. That's good that you mentioned that. All right. Well, thank you for showing that. That's awesome. I wanted to get that demo out, and obviously this video is going to be available after, so anybody can come to that and check it out. We have the merge that we use just from GitHub, that we did that from the CLI, and we have both demos along with awesome answers. Eddie, thank you so much for joining here. I think we're going to end it now. I kind of had my questions answered. I'm going to see if I'm missing anything. We went through the comment sections a little bit. Somebody's asking, how do you choose the right people to help in a project? At this point, anybody can technically help. So I just wanted to address that. It's all about who do I accept commits from, I guess, or pull requests from. And if you have a better answer, that's the idea of open source, is that anybody can contribute to it.
Anybody can contribute, absolutely. And it's about them adding value to the project. So as long as they're adding value, then most people will accept those PRs.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining. Thank you for your time. I'm sure everybody got a ton of value out of it. I got a lot of questions answered. I wanted to do this more for myself. I wanted to call you up personally, but I don't want to take your time. I figured if we do this live, we can assist everyone else. More can benefit from it. Then it makes sense for you. So thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for having me on your YouTube channel. It's awesome to be here. I look forward to geeking out again.
Yep.
Like I said, we can if you have any more kind of, you collect your questions up together, we can do another live stream or something and geek out with everybody. You have an awesome community here. Thank you everyone for listening to me. Hopefully you didn't fall asleep. And when I talk about open source, my wife says I can get a bit carried away, just geek out for ages. I mean, we've been going for over 2 hours, but I just love it. I could go for another 2 more hours easy.
No, it was interesting for me, so I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. Links are in the video description to Eddie's channel. There's going to be links also for getting started with GitHub, some introductory level videos. So what we just talked about, what Eddie showed, I'm sure the links we're going to be posting are going to be for that basically. So we'll go ahead and add those after the stream. Take care, everyone.